Yes, yes, people. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are listening across the world. If it's listening on the playback or listening to me live, hope you all are doing well this evening. It's 7:35, 12th of May. Hope everyone's doing well. Please let me know whether you can hear me in the chat. Everything's coming through okay on my end, but just please make sure that yeah, you all can hear me. Hopefully, we're gonna have a very good, interesting live stream tonight. But yeah, I already know I've been conversing with you, Skit, with my reloaded. So and I appreciate you for stopping by and dropping down your thoughts on the subject. So for sure, if you are available after the live stream, you do manage to catch it, then yeah, 100%, 100%. Um, love hearing your voice. Aaron B, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please let me know if you can hear me in the chat. Hope you're all doing well, but please make sure you can hear me in the chat. So put a one or something. But yeah, I'm going to continue. So, title of this live stream, the reason for the live, I've got a special guest lined up just to help me out with this topic because it's someone who I thought, would be perfect for this topic. I'm not going to delay too long. And the top title is Capitalism versus Socialism. What is the better model? Now, this has been a debate that still rages on for so many years. It spans so many times, so many centuries, and it's still interesting to me how this topic still is. I won't say going on at all, but it's a massive, massive debate, even amongst a lot of um, black movements, Pan Africanist movement, black power movements in regards to what should be the better model or what should be the best model for us to go with, considering our plight as a people, considering what I suppose you could argue capitalism has propelled us into. But that's the kind of the subject we're going to get into today. I'm not going to delay too long. I'm going to bring up my brother Kale. I'm hoping this is the right one. He got two here. I don't know if it's a different device. But Kale, welcome. Can you hear me? Is everything all good? Okay, I don't know if you can hear. I can hear background noise, but I can't hear if you are speaking.
How you doing, my brother?
Ah,
Yeah, just come back. Yeah.
all right. I mean, I'm happy to ramble on until you're ready, man. I don't know if you caught you at a bad time or.
No. I just have to quickly turn something off and come back.
No. That's good. That's good. That's good. No, but no. But anyway, first off, let's do the greetings. Let's not be let's not be. I'm gonna be rude. So, how are you doing, Kale? Are you doing well? You doing good?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Just noticing the weather keeps changing.
Yeah, it's been quite nice, I suppose, where I am at. So today it's not been too bad, and Kale's dropped off again. But no, it's been good. It's been good. Let me say, let me greet the chat. I see a few more people have turned up. Mr. Pelu, welcome, welcome. Nice, thank you for stopping by. I hope you're doing well. Stanley, likewise. Hope you're doing well this afternoon. I think it is on your time, so hope you all are doing well. But yeah, while I wait for Kale, what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of set the backdrop to really where I wanted to take this question at all. So here we go. All right, Kale, you back?
Can you hear a little bit of echo going in?
I can't hear it. I don't know if anyone in the chat, if they can let me know whether you can hear it. 1 second, 1 second. Right, just listening back, I can't hear an echo. I mean, we can continue. It's fine on my end. So, um, I suppose if it gets too bad, we can definitely look to see what we can correct it with. But no, um, but yeah. So, Kale. Now, let's start off with. I was going to play a backdrop of video. I think this would be the great starting point. I think just to set the scene. So, there's a video which I just wanted to play, which I'm just going to get here, which I think is perfect in regards to what this discussion is all about. It's about a 5 minute video, so hopefully, this shouldn't be too long. Let me just put the before I get into it. Let me just put the fair use on there. Right, so fair use, fair use, fair use. Let me just put it on there just so we can get to it. But So let's get this video and then we can start from here. That's all right. If you want to stop and comment anytime, that's fine. But yeah, I'm going to hopefully just play it through one time and then we can get with the video, with the topic. Let's go.
Pan-Africanism must come from the bottom up, from the masses of the people up. It is here then that we've come to see the real aspect of Pan-Africanism. We said that in the Fifth Pan-African Congress they called for mass organizations, and immediately mass organizations sprang up throughout the length and breadth of the African world. The Conventional People's Party, a mass party, sprang up in Ghana. The Democratic Party of Guinea, a mass party, sprang up in Guinea. Throughout the length and breadth of Africa, you had TANU, the Tanzanian African National Union, which is now the CCM. My Swahili is not as good as yours. Chumpa, Chimpuraza, Mazuri.
That's very good.
Oh, my Swahili is bad. Thank you. Chapa Chapman Puduzi. Exactly. And that's their new party. But all over Africa, mass parties sprung up. If you look at the Caribbean, mass parties sprung up. And if you look at the United States, mass movements sprang up. So the call was heeded for mass confrontation. Of course, the Fifth Pan-African Congress made two definite and precise resolutions which I want to highlight. Of course, Pan-Africanism from the very beginning was anti-colonial. From the very beginning, it was anti-colonial. It was weak. So when they came, they didn't say to the Queen, we're going to put you out of the country. They said, you must treat the natives right. You must educate them. You must prepare them for self-government. These are things that are weak, but they were anti-colonial in essence. We must not look at the form. And we got stronger, the more this anti-colonialism will express itself. Now, anti-colonialism is nothing but anti-capitalism. Because colonialism is nothing but an offshoot, an aspect of capitalism. Therefore, if you're anti-colonial, you must be anti-capitalist, if you're logical in your thinking, of course, and your actions. Some people are not, but we are speaking of logical people here. Yes. If you're anti-capitalist, then you must be socialist. Capitalism cannot unite Africa. Africa has to be united by socialism. Now, there's a lot of confusion here on this question of capitalism and socialism. Just recently, a young man said to me, but socialism died. I said, it did? He said, you didn't hear about it? I said, I missed the funeral. Of course, he spoke about the betrayals that occurred in the East. You must not let capitalism confuse your thinking. This is a struggle which Pan-Africanism takes on. We struggle against imperialism in the ideological arena because many people think that capitalism just wants to exploit your labor. It wants to confuse your thinking and make you think just like them. And this is where the real fight occurs. So therefore, this struggle of confusing the thinking, I told the man, I said, you're talking nonsense. Socialism cannot disappear. It cannot die. He said, yes, it can. I said, no. He said, how do you say that? I said, well, you are judging socialism by socialists. You don't do that. He said, I've never heard such nonsense. If you don't judge socialism by socialists, what do you judge it by? I say, you judge it by its principles. Every system is judged by its principles, never its adherents. So he still saw confusion. He said, you're just talking double talk. I said, okay, do you judge Christianity by Christians? So we must not be confused here. Socialism doesn't fall because of betrayal. No system does. The person who betrays themselves goes to the mud, but the system, with its eternal principles, keep marching on. If a system fell because of betrayal, Christianity would have been finished with Judas. At least Judas had the dignity to hang himself. Some of these who betray socialism don't have that dignity. Gorbachev still runs around speaking and picking up 30 pieces of silver everywhere. So socialism is an economic system, and there can only be two in the world, capitalism or socialism, because every economic system must answer one fundamental question. Who will own and control the wealth of the country? Who will own and control the means of production? The question can only be answered two ways. Either a few will own or everyone will own. It's as simple as that. And under capitalism, we say, please summarize that we might have. No, I'm going. I thought I had 20 minutes. It's my time. I thought I had 20 minutes. I was going by the clock. How much time do I have left? I'm sorry. Maybe I'm off. That's what I thought I did. I was watching it. No, I'm watching my clock. I'm irresponsible. I'm revolutionary. I go by time. I got my clock right here. Matter of fact, I can say it in 2 words, Black Power. And today we've gone to one, Pan-Africanism. So there are only 2 economic systems, and it's going to be capitalism or socialism. Capitalism is a backward system. There's no need to discuss it. Certainly anyone who's been made a slave by capitalism ought to be hesitant in trying to support the system. But as a conscious African, I must be against capitalism, and I must, of course, seek to destroy it. So when you speak of Pan-Africanism, you must understand you speak of socialism. And we want to underline there's only one socialism out here, and that's scientific socialism. whose principles are abiding and universal. There's no such thing as African socialism, Chinese socialism, Russian socialism, Arab socialism. There's only one socialism. The confusion arises over ideology. That is that which guides you towards your objective. So we're saying clearly here, Pan-Africanism is not an ideology. It is an objective. It is an achievable. Pan-Africanism is the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. All we want is a unified continent with a socialist system. That's all. But you know, Africa is the richest continent in the world. When she's properly organized, she'll be the most powerful. Yeah, of course. Of course. And me, all I want is power. I'm not like others. I don't want money. I don't want popularity. I just want the power I'm supposed to get. That's all. That's all.
Right. So I thought that would be a perfect backdrop to the start of this conversation, because I think I know, Kale, that you have a very much different opinion in regards to a lot of Pan-Africanists' take on what structure is best. And Stanley, yes, as you've seen on the video, yeah, it was Kwame Ture. So yes, it was him, or Stokely Carmichael as it was formerly known as. But yes, that is that was the backdrop I wanted to start off here. So the first question then, Kale, just to start this off is, do you believe that which one do you think is the best model, capitalism or socialism?
Just want to put up Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, really Pan-Africanist.
Yeah.
In truth, from the white man, either one of them is being African people, to be fair. And whichever one you use, we turn back to the non-Africans controlling everything.
Right, I see. Okay. So now, when you say both, are we? Because I think this is the ultimate sort of question, which Stokely Carmichael, well, Kwame said, and I think this is a very good point, where a lot of these are just objectives, but it's how you sort of steer the vehicle, the ideology of it. So, do you know how you say? I suppose you could argue both are valid or both can help us. Is it how we've used it, or how we can actually? Right word to probably weaponize, probably might be the right word, but have we been have we lacked our ability to be able to use both to help us in our plight? Would that be a fair assessment?
We haven't understood that first of all, capitalism is based upon, as Kwame Ture made it clear, the private ownership of productions, which exploit the workers, and the workers don't benefit off it. That's a problem. Socialism, whereas the people, then, for example, a collective, they kind of like control everything and the means. But at the same time, with the socialism, they want to try and kind of like reform the state so they can control it to benefit the people, and at the same time, whoever's in charge of that, whether it be the European, the Asian, the Eastern, unfortunately, when it comes to us as a people, that someone has to be exploited, and no non-African individual or even collective is going to take African people's place, which is exploitment. So neither one of them benefits, to be fair.
Okay, sorry, you are breaking up a little bit, so I don't know whether it's your mic or if you're able to reposition yourself. I'll wait for him to come back at all on this. And but yeah, I mean, I will say that. I mean, one of the things I'm going to definitely ask Kale, and even the chat, I was thinking of structures or successful societies, successful kingdoms, and it's always interested me with this concept, because I'm thinking, can anything truly be 100%? Because when we talk about capitalist societies, socialist societies, I'm like, a lot of them aren't 100% socialist or 100% capitalist. It's likely one of them will dominate, and I suppose to the level which is governed by the people that exist in that country. So if you take, for example, some of the principles that we take over here in this nation, I guarantee it wouldn't fly in another nation, like in the US. I'm thinking of the NHS system. So if anyone understands the NHS system, you go and float that to people in the US, they would probably hate that kind of system. But yeah, it's always an interesting conversation about how we view the two. But yeah, Stanley, 100%, 100%. That is true. That is true. So the thumbnail to this video, it gives the definition of socialism and capitalism. So I'm just going to read it verbatim. Um, Socialism. So this is a system of economics where the means of producing goods and services are under public ownership. Under a pure socialism, the government makes all the legal decisions related to producing goods and services and distributing them, and the people depend on the state for fulfilling all their needs. That's socialism. Now, capitalism, as you can imagine, is pretty much the converse. A system of economics where where capital goods are privately owned by businesses or individuals. Under a pure capitalism, a free market economy exists rather than a command or a planned economy. So that's how we see it. And yeah, that's exactly what I was on the viewpoint of in regards to the whole capitalism versus socialism argument. Truth be told, most of it is a bit of a blend. As to what blend it is will determine whether we consider it capitalist or a socialist structure, which at the moment for most of our economy or the westernized economies, it's majority going to be capitalist in regards to a lot of the goods and services that we use and procure today. Kale, is there? Let's see if your mic is working through better now.
Then is it working better now?
Still seems a little bit choppy, but I think we can go with it.
You sure? Because can you hear me properly now? Or?
I can hear you, but again, it feels as if it's about to break up. But let's go. So I think that we sort of last left off. We was talking about. Well, I think you made the case of as long as the structure benefits us as a people.
Yeah,
I suppose it could be irrelevant what system you use. Is that how I understood what you were saying?
I mean, here's the thing. You've got another system called anarchy, right? And a lot of people don't understand what that is. They think it's chaos. You know, when you look at the Greek thought, is that they agreed upon themselves that if the majority controls the system, it's chaos. So what the anarchy does, the whole system is that they use the name anarchy campaign to get the people lured in, but it doesn't necessarily mean else.
Yeah, sorry, bro. You're still kind of breaking up a little bit, Kay. I'm not gonna lie to you. You're still like in and out. You've got another device on here. I don't know if that's even anything to add, but you've got another device. But yeah. Sorry, bear with us, folk. It's a little bit cranky at the moment, you know. It's a little bit trap, roadhouse, whatever you want to call it. But we're gonna get there, people. We're gonna get there. But yeah, but definitely speaking, I think this is one of the things which a lot of, I suppose, historical Pan-Africanists have always leaned to the side of more socialism. And I'll say this for myself, and this is probably just how I see things. I think at heart, most people are socialist in terms of their viewpoint. Because socialism, if you want to be honest, sounds fair. It sounds everyone gets according to their needs. The people own the businesses. The people own the goods they distribute the goods evenly. It's all fair. So socialism in its principles seems fair. And I think a lot of people at their heart, because they want to be fair, obviously not all, are probably socialists at heart. However, when it comes in practice, this is the kicker. And this is where a lot of I remember listening to Thomas Sowell, and he was mentioning that he was a Marxist, even studying under Milton Friedman, who, you know, he's clear about his viewpoints on it. He was a staunch Marxist, but it wasn't until he got into the workforce and he understood the context and the confines of what happens. He's like, nope. This in reality is not going to work. And I think this is where a lot of people are, where socialism seems to be for, I think the stereotype is younger people, more naive people. And then once you get into the workforce and you understand, okay, I worked here, then it's like capitalism makes sense. But there's even a converse to that, in which sometimes I fit in, is when you start to make money, You actually don't want a capitalist structure. You actually don't want a free market. And I explain what I mean. Like Microsoft, like monopolies and stuff. I believe a lot like Microsoft, Facebook, whenever they see a competitor, what do Facebook do? They try and buy up the market share. They don't want to, like, I think they bought Instagram. What else did they buy? They bought quite a few, I think WhatsApp they bought as well. Basically, they wanted to buy the competition because guess what? Competition for certain people is negative. So why would I want to give up my market share to another competitor? So a lot of these, that's why they call it collusions, these businesses, a lot of them I believe at heart is capitalism. There's another phrase: capitalism is for the poor, socialism is for the rich. Because the rich people, they don't want to give up their money. Let's be honest, no one wants to give up their money, right? So a lot of times they're like, oh no, 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 oh, no. Let them play that game of capitalism. Now I've made it. Now I've got my finances. Now I've got my businesses being, a FTSE 100 company or on a New York Stock Exchange. Now I want actual benefits. Now I want some welfare. Now I want handouts. Now I need bailing out. Now I need every single social structure stereotypically, which you're thinking, hold on, you guys are meant to be for, or we thought you were for competition. We thought you were for freedom. We thought you were for this. I was like, but no. So I do think there's a converse to that, where when people get a lot of money and when people get high up in the food chain, I admit I do complain a lot about this, because I when you get up there, you don't want people coming to take your money into someone who you think is undeserving. That's kind of how it always seems when you get to a certain level. So it's always interesting when we have this conversation about socialism versus capitalism, because there's so many different structures which just completely book the trend about what we actually truly believe in. But you know what? We go with it. We go with these structures. We believe in it. It just is what it is. A lot of times I believe it just depends on what the people agree to. Again, the classic example for us is the NHS. Worldwide, all over the world, any Brit will tell you, oh, the NHS is wonderful. The NHS is the best thing since sliced bread. The NHS is free. You don't have to pay for anything. That's a socialist structure. But yet and still, when it comes to other things, we're like, no, we don't like that kind of stuff. Whereas again, in other nations, they don't like that whole idea of that's what they call it, universal healthcare, because of the impact it has on the budget and things like that. They have a more private healthcare, again, where it has more capitalist structures, more ventured interests, and this is how these things roll. So yeah, it's always interesting when this conversation comes up as to really how capitalist are you at heart and how socialist are you at heart. It's always an interesting one. But yeah, ultimately I believe that people are a bit of a mix. It just depends on what we're talking about. So it's always interesting. It's always interesting. But yeah, it looks like we have lost Kale, it looks like. So we have lost the main man of the hour, the main man of the show. So you have to bear with me, people. I'm hopefully he's gonna come back and everything. So yeah. Until then, you have to listen to my voice for a little while. Kale, okay. Let's see if this works again. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can do, but it still seems like it's the same. So I don't know if it's
the link, what you sent to me in the email. I pressed that, and then for some reason, echoing.
Right. Do you want to? It sounds daft, but let me put this link in this chat. Can you access the chat if I put it in?
I'm trying to think, but how do I get out of this one, because it's still echoing? I'm trying to get out.
Right. What's this one, Kale? Is this you still? Can you hear me on this one? Like, I've got two of them for you.
Are you able to delete? Get rid of.
This sounds so much better.
Right. Okay. Did you delete that one? Did you?
Well, you've left that one. So let me. Do you want to? I don't know. Can you come back out of both of them? I don't know if you can do that. So,
no, I don't. Can you get rid of the other one as well?
Right. Try this. Let me try this and try this. Right. I'm just gonna kick you from the studio. All right. So I've just kicked you from the studio, Kale. Now try and come back. See what happens. Well, I've kicked the other one from the studio. Let's just say that. All right. So one of you's come back. So not two like it was last time. So let's see how that comes through. It did sound better when you came through, but yeah, see.
Yeah, it seems more clearer now.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Okay. Right.
Sorry about that, folks.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. Now, to be honest with you, I've kind of almost forgotten where we left off with. I think we mentioned that as long as the people themselves benefit from the goods, well, basically from the system, that's the main thing. And then you mentioned about anarchism, chaos. I think you mentioned that, and
Yeah,
that's what sort of cut off. Can you go through that again for me, please?
yeah. Well, basically, the modern day Greeks, they come up with a word called anarchism, and basically the discussion was that if the majority was to control the system, it would be chaos. But anarchism has nothing to do with chaos at all.
Right.
It's the total opposite. It's basically about mutual agreement, volunteering as a collective, without forcing or using tyranny, to kind of get the people to be compliant, to build up, um, the system that the workers get what they need, and the employers as well.
Oh, so hold on.
Um,
Sorry. So just to check my understanding. So you're saying the word anarchism is the opposite of what we kind of think it is. It's not about everyone earning everything. It's about a mutual agreement. Is that right?
oh, it's not about chaos, because when people hear anarchy, they think about chaos, but basically it's a propaganda word
Right.
that's used today by the anarchism to keep the people interested, so they think that it's about chaos, when actuality it's about a mutual agreement as a collective, that you volunteer to build with each other without having man-made laws or any form of curriculum that
Ah,
dictates dictatorship or any form of kind, if that makes any sense.
I think it does. So in essence, they've labeled it a bad word, so people don't actually see what it is, which is probably a way of the better way of actually doing things in terms of coming with a mutual agreement in order to, I suppose, in business. That's how I see it. It's almost like they've flipped the word as to what it means for people to think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the issue. So if we're referring to that, then that seems more of a appropriate way of, if the people them are saying that they want to build a society without capitalism or socialism. Me as a Pan-Africanist nationalist, brother White matters. Um, However, we believe that it doesn't matter whether it's capitalistic system, sorry, or socialism, or even anarchism. All three of them typify that the non-Africans will exploit African people anyway and anyhow.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now, historically, though, here my viewpoint. Then we'll ask yours. Which system, at least under the guise of system, has been more detrimental to us? Because in the initial video, Kwame was mentioning that colonialism is basically a form of capitalism because obviously it's free labor, and funny enough, that's the perfect way to build empires. Let's be honest. If you can get free labor in any workforce, you got a gold mine, haven't you? So whereas socialism, that's always been seen almost, I say communism, if you want to put it in there, a dictatorship, which, as we know, a lot of people have, died. I mean, which one would you say has been the worst for us? And then obviously conversely, which one has been the better model for us historically, in your opinion?
As I said before, I strongly keep to this, is that all three of them has been a detrimental to all of us, because the capitalism, as what's been explained, it's when private owners, or whether it be controlling the industrial a business, right, where they believe that we control everything, and the workers, it doesn't matter how they feel or what state of mind they're in, we're going to exploit them.
Right.
And Karl Marx is, although he has a materialistic type of method towards that, it's a very smart way of kind of getting people to not think about that he really does believe in capitalism, but he's removed the word, and he has a way of kind of masking it, is that it's exploiting the people. Socialism as well, one way or another, although they focus on the communal collective, but yet still, if everyone works together, for example, multiculturalism, right?
Right.
Now, we as a people, unfortunately, are disorganized. So in political science, a disorganized collective who are joining up with an organized collective will always get exploited. And you see that in the socialism hierarchy, the same thing, the black people at the bottom, even though it's about it's about the well-being of the workers, if they how they're obtaining in the workplaces, you know what I mean? But yet still, we're still at the bottom. So three of them, Brother White Matters, has definitely been detrimental to African people. Neither one of them has been best for us. If that is a way that you want to look at it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because I think how a lot of black people, especially I would say upperly mobile people who want to get it in life, they always see socialism as a constraint, and capitalism is that route and that avenue to get to the top in the societies in which we consider it to be better fit for our people, even though if it's majority Europeans that control the institutions, and a lot of our people, we see capitalism as that route, that avenue to be able to I think it's probably the best route I've been told to go from one social economic grouping to a higher social economic grouping, and that's where I suppose capitalism has the edge, I suppose, historically, because I know people go back and forth with this in regards to just because a few black people have made it, does that mean the collective is good? True, that doesn't mean that. But I suppose it just gives people that hope that in that structure, it's you are able to do that, even if it doesn't benefit the whole group of people. You touched on something which I wanted to get into, which is we're disorganized at the moment, clearly. So, in my opinion, because we're disorganized, I actually think a social structure is probably not. I don't think it's the best structure, even if we did have, if you like, freedom. Let's just say it that way. I always think that for social structures, it allows for a lot of charlatans I don't know, come in. It always feels like there's a lot of charlatans. There's always a lot of bit of, I don't know if that's the right word, or dictators. What's your thoughts on that kind of stuff? I always think socialism is more of an easier structure for it to go badly wrong as opposed to capitalism.
But here's the thing in that, right? When we go into capitalism, you've got like the reality, you've got the bourgeoisies, right?
Yeah.
And they, like I says, they are the custodians controlling the areas of production in capitalism and a capitalistic society. And then you've got the proletarians, which is class as socialism, the members of working class, regarded as a collective that wants everyone to be equal. Now, as I said to you before, brother, is that these kind of groups will say one thing and it always ends up another. Now, if we, for example, have a history of going through the same process of relying on non-African people for our liberation, right? Then what's going to happen is that we're always going to be going backwards. A lot of us think that there's a thing called you're always in the middle, and there's no such thing that you're in the middle or going around in circles. It's either you're going backwards or forwards, right? So what I'm proposing is the African way of democracy, which a lot of us have forgotten. And funny enough, brother, that the when it comes to the non-Africans, right, they also have taken up on the African democracy, and what they've done is they've taken bits and pieces to suit them, and gathered what they've called capitalism and socialism and anarchism, etc. But the African democracy, brother, was definitely something which was very functional, mentally. We were okay, and we definitely need to get back to that and pan-Africanize that in this modern world. But any other system, brother, capitalism, anarchism or whatever. The reason why it won't be good for us, because as I said before, we have a different nature to non-African people. When you understand capitalism, it suits the non-African people, particularly the Europeans, because they have a mindset of the survival of the fittest, and we have to exploit, and whatever happens to those who are exploited, as long as we get what we get out of it, then nothing matters. And we don't have that mindset, brother White Matters, which will confuse us and will become lost, which happens now. We're trying to enter all these systems where our nature will never be able to adapt to it. So we definitely have to go back to the ancient ways, modify it, that suits our nature.
Okay, that makes sense, because I think that hopefully that answers Stanley's point here, which, while you're right, democracy is not an economic system, I think here what you're pointing to is, if the mindset of the people is such a way, it will all ultimately influence the economic system. So as you was pointing out, you would say socialism would work better. Capitalism doesn't work for us based on our nature. It's based on survival of the fittest, Darwinism, which is something which you would say is not in our nature. Therefore, for us, the system doesn't play to our hands; it plays to their strengths. So I suppose it's all about how we structure the society and what we believe in. Because I was mentioning this, Care, before you came back. I don't know if you caught it. Is most societies, they have a blend. It's a funny blend. Even though I would say the UK is a capitalist system, it has a blend of socialism, because that's what the people have accepted under their democracy. For example, the NHS. NHS is lauded as as the sacred cow, but that's a social structure. So whenever they talk about privatizing it, people go crazy. They, oh, we don't want to do that. But yet and still, we have other things like energy, railway, telephone lines, broadband. That's all privatized. That'll be a typically capitalist structure. So I suppose my question then is: are we saying then or would you say there are certain things which, because again, I believe there are certain things which probably should be in the hands of the government, but there should be certain things that are in the hands of the people. And this for me goes to that trust factor. I mean, would I trust the government with some of the core goods and primary services? Probably not. I mean, I know right now in Africa, you see, there's even another clip where saying Africa has more Mercedes and more flashy cars than the United States, yet they're in so much poverty, such as the disparity in what the leaders are doing. And we all know what happens with, I think Nigeria is a classic example where the government controls the oil. It's an oil-rich nation, and yet we know the situation that goes on there. So, so I'm always in this, in the fence of, is it a blend that we need? Is it a negotiation as to what is it that we would say needs to be in the hand of the government, socialist, or is there any things we should say, you know what, we should keep this as a free market just to give us that ability to be able to flex? If that elongated question made any sense to you.
Well, brother, here is you look at, for example, the fundamental rights constitution law of Africa and ancient Africa, how it was. First of all, the people are the first and final source of all power. Second, the rights of community of the people. The kings, chief, and elders are leaders, not rulers. They are elected representatives of the people and the instrument for executing their will. Government and people are one and the same. Family is recognized as primal social, economic, or political unity. The elder of each extended family and clan is chosen a representative of the council. Decisions in the council are made by the elders. And the list goes on: money for gifts, taxes, and other forms, donation. It was all about for the people, brother White Matters, right? And, you know, when you look at the rights of African people, the right to equal protection of the law, the right to a home, the right to land sufficient of earning livelihood of oneself and family, the right to aid in times of trouble, the right to petition of register of grievance, the right to criticize and condemn any acts of authorities or propose of new laws, the right to reject the community's final decision on any matter, to withdraw from the community unmolested, rights of rebellion withdrawn, the right to fair trial, the right of injuries and loss of cause, the right to special aid from the chief circumstances. Now, notice it's about the people, the rights to rights. Now, in the capitalist system, brother, And those are going to be disappointed, those who are for capitalism as well as socialism. We don't get the same thing, especially for African people, which is a shame because when you check the history of Brother White Matters, is that we have helped every single ethnicity when they were in problems economically, when they were slaves, due to our military base as well as our economics and our good heart, that we help them to get out of situations. And it's very strange that how we don't have the power now, and all these NHSs and all these institutions seems to be putting us right at the bottom, whereas historically any healthcare we had as a down and stuff, right, we always helped the people. Now it is true we did practice race first, but what makes us very unique towards the non-African people, that we practice race first, but we always helped out non-African people with no strings attached. We would share every single curriculum or any form of resources that will help out those ethnicities. Whereas now, we're shut down. So it returns back again, Brother White Matters, is that whatever field that we're in, we have to have a union, which a lot of the Marxists, they've also mentioned this many times in their books, is that having a union is very important, because a union basically terrifies the government, because the government understand if the people them are collectively demanding their rights, right, they can always tackle as what is said, the 1% who are controlling everything. And the Honourable Marcus Garvey made that perfectly clear in his time with the United Negro Association. It was a union, brother, that if we needed anything, we could always come there. So our solution would be having a union, if that makes any sense.
It does, but let me put another perspective to that, because there's been a history of, and obviously it's not an African perspective, but in this country, we talk about a union, and one of the things which seems to happen with unions is a lot of what we call red tape, because of course they hold the majority of the power. Classic example is the Thatcher years, in which the unions were literally on a lot of them on strike, a lot of strikes, blackouts, situations like that, where you could argue having a union, which sounds good, you want to protect the interests of the people, it could actually stop economic growth and progress. And would that be in a situation where having these unions, having these people who so much red tape, and if they don't like this going on, that going on, truth be told, we're going to stop economic progress, we're going to stop people being able to have food, distribution of goods, supply, services, purely because we're now in a bartering, we're now in a back and forth in which people aren't able to agree to anything, because again we have that back and forth with the group, and it just ends all in tears.
Well, the only individuals or collective who will be intimidated by the union is, of course, the bourgeoisies. And the reason why that is as I said, that whether you want to call them capitalists or bourgeoisies, that they all believe in exploitation. And the thing is that Karl Marx is who was a materialist, he also critiqued the capitalists, because anything that has to exploit human life is a problem. These things are foreign to African people. And although the non-Africans, that what they may say that and have a hidden agenda, but if we do take what Karl Marx did say, and that exploiting human life, right? So if we want to prevent that against the 1%, as what people like to call them, then a union is definitely needed to campaign against that, because what it does is that it basically it traps them from making these types of decisions of exploiting the masses. And that's what the benefit of the union is. Although, okay, there's been other avenues where the union has not been used correctly by the collective. However, when it comes to us as a people, we can say that our activism, our collective work has definitely distracted and enabled us to get our agenda correctly. If you look at Black Wall Street, you know, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, and that was led by him, by the way, those who don't know that, is that that also helped the fact that the people can go to a system of the union where they can get certain rights and it can be pushed forward if it has a Pan-Africanist curriculum with it. But the union, to tackle the capitalists, they're afraid of that. That's the top strategy to deal with them, to be fair.
Okay. I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of surprised a bit, Cal. I thought you'd be more on the capitalist side of things. I'll be honest with you, because yeah, I'm pretty sure. Obviously, Marcus Garvey, you mentioned Black Wall Street, but these were pretty much staunch. I don't know if it's staunch capitalists, but they use capitalist. Obviously, I know, just for people who weren't aware, Cares on the side of the opinion of both helps. It's really about, I suppose, a lot of its implementation on us as a people as to how we implement these structures. But yeah, I thought you'd be more on that whole capitalist side as opposed to socialist. To be fair to you.
Nah, because the thing is, brother, what matters is that I am an African descendant like yourself, right? And how we ruled the world, brother. We used justice and equality and knowledge. We didn't need to exploit human life. And you know, because we have no power, brother, is that unfortunately we will be conforming and submitting to these types of institutions. So what the Honorable Marcus Garvey made it clear in his great wisdom as well as message is that whatever institution that you so happen to be in or under, is that you nationalize your economics for your race, and you nationalize your political agenda for your race, and you nationalize your culture, right? And what will happen is that if you look at what's his name again now, Miles, the president, the Chinese president, he was born in the early 1800s and that, right?
You say
Is
Mao or something, but no,
Mao, Mao, yeah, appreciate that correction, right? With him, one of the things that made him very successful when it came to China, that he had a culture revolution as well, which made him more even effective than Stalin and Lenin, who both were in a disagreement with each other. But and by the way, Mao used to sit in the classes of the Honorable Marcus Garvey in New York, which helped out with him to get China right. But the point is that he used a culture revolution for China, and these things are very effective. Why it matters when you look at certain things, that you could be under a government even though you have no power, but as long as you have a code that you're going to maneuver regardless of what happens, then you can definitely outbeat. And when you do get your military power and political power, then you can overthrow injustice wherever it may be.
Okay, I don't know if we're talking a little bit cross purposes, a little bit here, because I don't know whether, because I think with China it was pretty much based on the culture was more socialist, so they're more together, they're nationalized, they have a very strong patriotic view in China. But if you look at China's, and this is what I was going to pivot to now, in terms of, do we need to think differently because we're in a different world? I know you said previously, historically, our people did this. However, you could argue because we had this mindset, because we had this viewpoint, it's now almost, we've been outplayed by other chess players on the board because we're probably not as ruthless. Do we need to probably think a bit differently in terms of to be back on power? No one's going to give us power, let's be honest. Power has to be taken. Do we have to have a different mindset to be a bit more ruthless with our affairs? Because obviously you could argue, which you are right, we have all the resources on our land, but if we don't own the land or if people are exploiting the land, it's irrelevant. The people's on the land. Do we have to change our viewpoint, if that makes sense, or our strategy?
Well, the reason why I mentioned the Chinese president in that time, because one of the things that was effective, brother, which he seems were Stalin and Lenin, they more focus on materialism, whereas the Chinese president, he focused on military tactics. Due to in China there was industrial armies that they needed to get rid of, and he also you had a culture revolution. Now, these are very interesting because you don't have to become a people in order to conquer them. All you have to do is understand who you are, right, and how to outbeat them. Sun Tzu says it best: if a general knows himself and knows his enemy, then he can win 1,000 wars. So it's not a question that you have to change or become anybody. No, you find how you are. You just have to have certain types of strategies to outbeat your enemy. Like, for example, one of the things that we have to control as a people is our dopamines. We have too much dopamines, white matters, for non-African people, whether it be in relationships, whether it be in business, whether it be in religion. We idolize them. And when you idolize and you see them as your God, and because we are a people who are very spiritual, you don't want to offend or go against God. So because of this mindset of dopamines, is that you're more likely to say, well, I'm going to become my God in order for me to help the God get further. So you don't have to become anybody. You just have to have, nationalize your culture. Pan-Africanism, brother, white matters, to clarify all these other institutes. It's a business. You're supposed to use your culture as a business to better the lives of Black people. And if your business under threat, then what you naturally do is, right, you get rid of the products that are not selling correctly, i.e. the unsynchronized African people, and as well as the non-African people. You have to market your business to excel, and that's what we've got to do. You've got to use your culture as a business. You've got to shut people down that will try and overthrow your business. If that makes any sense.
It definitely sounds more dictatorship, that kind of strategy, if I've inferred what you've said correctly. But I would say this though. I do think that there is something in, obviously, strategies is key when it comes to how you want to gain power. Because you use China as a classic example, and that's very good because they're still seen as a communist state.
Yeah.
And yet, if you look at all the metrics, say that China will be the #1 world power. I mean, some people say it really kind of is. It's definitely #2 right now. That China will be the world power by 2050. And if you look at how they're moving, it's a completely different way in terms of they're buying up basically countries. They're loading them with debts. Well, again, this is people say it's propaganda, but they're buying up land and resources, and they seem to be having a different type of strategy to rule the world, as opposed to the you could argue the European model, which is the colonialism structure, which is how Britain, for example, would deem the best or the most powerfulest empire the world has ever seen. So there is something in that in regards to strategies, and maybe different people have different dispositions, which helps them. If they get in one with it, then that might be it. But yeah, I suppose my question to you then is: so are we saying forget systems, forget economic systems? The first thing we need to do is us as a people, because you're dead key on this, isn't it? It's sometimes not the system, it's the people. If the people can be in the right state of mind, or I suppose synchronize is the right word, excuse me, then ultimately from there we can go from there.
Yeah, you have to be synchronized, because if you look at the non-Africans, for example, Karl Marx is right, because we're on the topic of capitalism and stuff, right? His blueprint in regards to primitive communism And what he believes is that ancient modes of production of mixture of materialism, belief of material world of the mode of production is driving force behind every evolution, right? Marx is also believes in the that it starts from feudalism, capitalism, communism, which necessitates exploiting agriculture of slavery again. The point is, brother, all these non-African people, whatever system they have, they seem to be synchronized with it. You see, even if they differ, they'll use their differing to confuse us, to make us believe, oh, they're not synchronized. But in actuality, they'll use these labels to confuse you, and at the same time have a synchronized agenda. What we like to do is that we like to kind of like say to ourselves, well, if we use, for example, socialism, we live it and breathe it. You see what I mean? And that realize that, okay, if you're going to be a socialist, right, make sure you have a code of conduct. Have one foot in the socialism, meaning that you may have to do coalitions, temporary coalitions with non-African people in order to get certain things put forward. But then you have your other foot back in your code of conduct for your people. We put both feet in these institutions, and we are very loyal towards it due to our dopamines for non-African people. Whereas non-African people, they only put one foot in, one foot out. One foot in will pretend that we're with non-African people to exploit them or get them to be in a communion collective, or we'll get them in anarchism. And then the other foot is European first, or Asian first, or Middle Eastern first. So it's definitely, brother, the synchronization. If we had that, we could be in any system at all. But without that, we are definitely lambs to the slaughter, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this on the kind of a side note, but it's relevant in regards to all of this. I think one of the main reasons why is because us as a group of people are so split up by tribes, ethnicities, skin color, or tone, whatever you want to call it, where it's easier for us to be probably more divided than other nations. I look at Europe, and Europe, if you go through the nations, in France they speak French, and in England speak English, in Italy they speak Italian, in Holland they speak Dutch. It's very, I think a lot of them are very connected, generally speaking, which helps in your, obviously we're talking one foot in, one foot out situation, where they understand that, hold on, these are all my peoples, and even Europe as a whole. Whereas I think for us, it's you go to one African nation, forget the whole continent, there's one African nation, you have like a 1,000 languages, okay, 100 languages and so many different ethnicities. It's like, okay. So I think a lot of it is because we as a people are just split up as a whole. We see each other differently. So even these kind of, how do we even nationalize the culture? How do we even do that when everyone sees each other as being different? It's it's one of the things I definitely noticed, which makes it easier for target practice, let's just say that. I don't know if you agree.
Well, the thing is that how do we do it? It's the same thing, brother. Why it matters is that when you're going into a company, right? A capitalist company and stuff, right? Is that the manager will say, okay, we've got Muslims, we've got Christians, we've got Jews, we've got Hebrew Israelites, Sikhs, Buddhists. We've got different types of people in religion in here. However, the goal is that we're going to build and generate to make this company go sky high, but to be a global powerhouse. Now, those individuals that I mentioned, right, they don't have to get rid of their religion completely. However, they do have to formulate a code of, although you are not from the Abrahamic faith, or you are not from the non-Abrahamic faith, I'm going to have a coalition with you from 9 to 5 to make this company great. That's all African people have to do. I don't have to be an Igbo to connect with you. You know what I mean? On that struggle. I don't have to get rid of my culture. You don't have to get rid of your culture. I don't have to get rid of the patois. I don't have to get rid of the Wolof. and have to get rid of Somali, Hameric, Berber language, or Zulu. I don't have to get rid of that, right? But what I do need to do is put it down on the surface, right? In order for me to go for the agenda, which is the liberation. And this is what we seem to fail to realize, is that if you can go in a company and work to get your money and to build up that company, then you can definitely work in a business to make sure your people stay in charge and all things. It's very simple, brother. Why it matters. We can do it. It's just that we don't want to take the responsibility of connecting as one, and we don't want to control our dopamines. We are dopamine junkies for non-African people, unfortunately.
No, I hear that. I definitely hear that, and that's one of the reasons why I think for me, I definitely favor the capitalist side of things, because how I see things is almost. I know he's mentioning that if we had our, I suppose, minds right, we would be able to operate in a business or a company, understand that you don't have to put our culture down, or we can at least code switch, as they call it, but we understand the objective and the agenda of what we're looking to do, like other groups do. And I'm of the opinion that what we like Jews, for example, Jews will own banks, but they don't work in it primarily. It'll be us who work in it. It will be Europe, other Europeans working in it. It will be South Asians working in it. It will be East Asians working in it. But it will benefit their community in terms of the major dividends. That's how I see certain things with us. I think that's why I favor more the capitalist, where we would almost build these institutions in whichever nation that we're in, and as long as it benefits us, it doesn't matter if our own people work there. Matter of fact, if our own people don't work there, as long as we get the that's the kind of levels which I'm always thinking that we need to be on. Sometimes I don't. Obviously, the whole point of us work for each other is completely fine. Other groups do that, no problems. But even to the point where you have a black business owner or who owns the business, be a bank, for example, or something, but the actual workers would be someone who's non-African. That's kind of the levels which I think, but it will still the dividends and the revenue and the money that will still be there to build up, whether it be your own communities, whether it be a nations, etc., etc. That's how I see how a lot of things really should roll, or how I would see things in other aspects. To be fair to you.
But the thing is with capitalism, brother, is that we have to be very careful,
right?
With the exploitation mindset, brother, because
can I ask a question? Sorry, that word exploitation. I just want to clarify that question, because there's an expression here where a fair exchange is no robbery. So, in other words, if you're working for somebody, you would get paid a wage.
Right.
And obviously, you as the business owner will get, if they work as well, they work. Basically, the company makes money, you'll make money, but the workers will still get paid a wage. Now, people argue this is a new form of slavery, depending on what it is. I get it. Would you consider that exploitation? I don't know whether if it's the word I'm hearing, it sounds off. But when you say exploitation, I'm always thinking, a very bad word. But I'm like, if you're working for somebody and you're getting paid a reasonable wage, is that exploitation, or is that just a fair exchange?
It sounds like surplus labor, right? Which is a problem. It's another part of slavery again. Is where, for example, like let's say, for example, you've got like an hourly wage of £15 an hour, and every hour you work, you generating £20, right, an hour for the company, and the company takes £5 of that. But then, in order for you to catch up with your wages, you're gonna have to do overtime, even though they're taking that £5 off. Now, some people say, well, okay, you've got to make ends meet. Well, anything that is neutralizing the humanity of the mind, brother, why it matters, which makes you go to extreme levels of your body, which you no longer are feeling as a human being, then that's a problem for the mind. And which is why with capitalism, right, it's definitely it's even beyond cattle, because even the animals don't get treated like that. They at least get to have a drink of water and things like that, because You won't be able to go to your boss. Okay, if I am doing 8 hours, and even though I'm getting paid 6 hours, with the 2 hours, I might as well just go home. No, he's gonna fire. You see, so this is the thing when it comes to capitalism and these branches. Why I say that with us as a people, if we are going to go into capitalism, we have to have a Pan-Africanist mindset to realize is that our nature, we believe in valuing life. You see, so if you are going to have a company and you're going to use that capitalist system, so for make sure the workers are benefiting, from that and not less benefiting, or you've basically indoctrinated how the Europeans believe human beings or workers supposed to be treated. This is why, for example, you've got that that war between the bourgeoisies and the proletarians. Do you know what I'm saying? There's that constant war, you know, and as what Karl Marx says, capitalism will not exist without exploitation. Now, exploitation, in some ways, we all get exploited. It's true.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's going to cost you your humanity, brother, and it's going to put you in certain situations, then we cannot follow that type of mindset, man.
But I think this is where probably it's how do we define and how do we regulate it? So, for example, in most companies they'll have unions. So you'll have so for example, I get half an hour for lunch
Right.
and 2 10-minute breaks. You'll have obviously get paid a wage. It has to be again we have minimum wage laws, etc., etc. So there'll be regulations and rules in place to make sure as best as possible. And this is where it comes a little bit subjective as to
Right.
that word exploitation, because in a general sense, oh, of course, I agree. I don't think you shouldn't be exploiting your workers, because at the end of the day, and this is true, you're going to need your workers to be able to help your business. Even if you die, if I was to die tomorrow, they'll get a replacement lined up. I get that, but they still need people to work for their business, for the business to be able to flourish. So I think for me, it's just that word of exploitation and how do we get there? Because we all see the profits of certain companies thinking, oh my days, they get so much profits. Is that what we're saying? We shouldn't have it should be only a certain amount of profits should be given. It should be more evenly distributed. I think that's for me really where it's a nuance of a conversation, I suppose, and getting into nitty gritty. But yeah, whenever I hear the word exploitation, I'm like, ooh, sometimes I'm like, I don't know. Always a situation where people just want too much. I don't know. But I do definitely understand your point that you're making. I think that's what I wanted to definitely say. I do understand your point. I just think there's probably a way of doing it is the way I'm probably trying to word my statement.
But remember, brother, like the capitalists believe, unfortunately, that everything, whether it's an individual or whether it's owners of the industrial business, they all believe, brother, in not distributing back the wealth. They don't believe in giving it back. You see what I'm saying in that, right? Which is why, if you look at in religion, you have a thing called charity. Now, if everyone was to pay their charity, there'd be no homeless people. People will be able to live off properly because they'll know, okay, even though I'm earning this amount, but at least this is getting paid for because money is being distributed amongst the land correctly. But the capitalists don't believe in that. So if you are going to have that mindset, why it matters, right? That means that your employees, sorry, are not going to reap. This is where the pro the pro Letarians and what they want to do, which is socialism again, as you would know, is that they want to kind of like seize the capitalist system, right, and reform it and use it to better the workers. You know what I'm saying? And that. But the problem is with this, as a Pan-African, is that sounds like a great idea, but at the same time, if it's a non-African person, right, who's in charge of that, which they are, they're more going to lean towards their race first and put us at the bottom, which still happens. See how it gets very tricky?
It does. And one thing I was going to say this, and would you not argue, though, that, for example, because of capitalism, the system,
Mm.
what we call poverty in the West is not the poverty that we see in the non-Western world. And this is where I'm a bit torn to say, I get what you're saying. And of course, by the way, their people should, and they would rightly put first their own people. I think that's someone who has self racial esteem would do that, generally
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah.
So I don't begrudge anyone for doing that. I think that should be normal.
Right.
Isn't there an argument? Could you not say that the capitalist structure or the structure that we see so far, which again is a bit of a blend,
Right.
you would say poverty. We've got food banks. I mean, that's a structure which people you can get food free, pretty much free food. The situations here with poverty in the classical sense is what we know it in these nations, not really the same. Would you not argue if we can adopt those principles and again make it fair? I suppose is what I'm saying. I don't know. It sounds as if a little bit of it probably might corrupt us as opposed to other groups because we're not predisposed to that. Is that kind of how I'm understanding it? We're more likely to be corrupted by the system than the European, for example.
Well, there's a thing called vulgar socialism, right?
Right.
And vulgar socialism is when, for example, is where the capitalists again, they're very strategic, is that they more focus on the symptom instead of the cause, right? So in their eyes, it's like, okay, if we focus on not allowing the people them to feel like they're getting exploited, right? And we focus on distribution instead of the the production of what needs to be put forward collectively, and that then they can always win the argument, brother. You see what I mean? And this is the thing of these food banks and things like that. These are like band-aids, these are like symptoms, right? But you won't need to have food banks if the capitalists, as what people say, the 1%, are disputing, or shall I say, like, equaling the money correctly and stuff, right? You'll have enough, you know what I mean? But because there's an anxiety by non-African people, and as I always says, Brother White matters, it returns back to geographical landmass, is that when you understand the ice people, unfortunately, there's nothing growing there. And because of that, that history, what they went through in that trauma of ice, is that they have like an anxiety that if we don't have all the resources, we're gonna go back to the ice. So although they've got everything, but they want to make sure they want entirely everything just in case they go back to the ice. And this is what I'm saying is that symptoms, brother, doesn't tackle the cause. The cause is, brother, is that the 1%, as usual, are exploiting the people in the sense of not giving them the fair due of the earnings which they work for. And they're taking everything and giving a little bit. This is what the issue is, and we can't run away from that.
And you know what? For me, I suppose if you like, my discrepancy is just on some of the like word fear and things like that. For example, let me take it from an individualist standpoint.
Yeah,
Because there are people in life who they really want to do their best. They want to work. They work hard. Work hard on other people. They
yeah,
sacrifice. And you would argue, isn't it not fair for that person to receive more of a reward than somebody who doesn't work as hard, who isn't as motivated, who doesn't want to help sacrifice, who doesn't want to help people? One of the things which I've always noticed with structures like that is, for example, in a lot of westernized nations, I suppose I won't say smarter, but more people who are more conscious of not bringing in kids in this world who are likely not going to have enough. So they'll probably have maybe 1 or 2 kids, are
yeah,
dwarfed by people who aren't like that and have 3, 4, 5 kids. And they clearly aren't in the, let's just say they're not as hard working. But a structure would say they would need a bigger house because they got 5 kids, whereas this human being here who has 1 or 2 kids will be left in a very, very crammed up house, even though that person works hard. Sometimes I think in theory it sounds good, but from an individual standpoint, I'm like, how do we the fairness? That's the question I always have a problem with when it comes to certain social structures. Because if you give everyone according to their needs, I don't think it's
yeah.
actually going to be as fair as we think it is. I think it's going to hurt people who actually would want to work harder and sacrifice, as opposed to somebody who just lays on their backside. I don't know. What do you think about that kind of stuff?
Well, the one that the one that lays on the backside and stuff, right? We can't really use that individual because you know, you doing anything, guy. You know, that can't really be included, brother.
But then,
Whereas one that's work, go on, brother. Go on, brother.
so I was just gonna say, also obviously with have kids, because obviously there'll be a lot as a stereotype. I know it's a stereotype, but they're the ones who likely be needing a bigger house. They're the ones who likely going to need more resources, just because they have, yeah, they have more time on their hands to do these kind of things. If you see what I mean.
Well, here's the thing, brother. A lot of people, especially the capitalists, they will say that the reason why, you know, there's poor people because they're not working hard enough. They're not, you know, um, producing a lot of wealth and things like that, and that's completely wrong. What I mean, it's not that they're not working hard enough; it's because there are those who have dominated an industry unfairly, and they are not disputing giving back to the earth, because the earth, brother, gives back to us. So naturally you have to give back to the earth, and this is what causes crime, and it causes people to commit inflicting harm, because there wasn't so long ago, brother, in UK that there were Irish gangs, Jewish gangs, etc., who weren't classed as Anglo-Saxon or white, and they were doing the same thing, brother. They were, you remember you had the poor whites. They were restricted because of certain class, but then they said to themselves, well, we have to get a living, and they committed crimes and etc. Some of them were lounging about and waiting for this, but because of that type of mindset, that everything was taken away from them and not distributed correctly, they had to resort to that. But it still returns back to brother, whether you working hard or not, it's not right that 1% who are not really doing anything, right, that they are taking everything from everybody. As what Karl Marx says, capitalism will not exist without exploiting the massive.
No, listen, I definitely hear you, and again, I definitely do agree on. For me, it's always about the length and these. You could always argue in a capitalist structure, greed is what dominates all. So you're always going to want more. You're always going to want more profits. You're always going to want more gains. You're always going to want more, and you want to hoard more. You want to keep more. So there's always an argument for capitalism where, again, there will be a certain group who dominate the bourgeoisie. That always dominate. And again, even Kwame Ture was saying in another video that, again, continent is a classic example where you have high levels of inequality, poverty, and yet they'll be having Mercedes, they'll be having all these trinkets, and you're thinking, how do you consciously do that whilst your people are starving? It's not as if you can say people are just not just getting by; they're literally dying of starvation. So no, I definitely do get it. For me, it definitely does breed greed. But sometimes I'm like, does it also breed creativity, ingenuity? Does it also breed minds that we've probably not seen before? Does it also create an avenue in a free market where, do you know what, I've spotted an issue, and because it's a free market, it's an open market, I can go in there and create a product that's going to help the people. And that's sometimes where I'm with that sort of mindset of sometimes, and again, it's all nuances, but yeah, in a more of a heavily more incentivized, let's use the word incentivized society, I think you won't miss some of the great minds, because I think a lot of the great minds, they would leave because they do think as if, let's be honest, they've probably produced more for society. Therefore, I believe I should be owed more for society, from society.
Right.
Whether that's right or wrong, it is what it is. But I think people do generally believe that that if they've produced more for society, I should be rewarded. Now, as to what that is, now it's monetary, as we know. But yeah, that's kind of where a lot of people, I believe, would see themselves. Not that saying that they want to starve people, but yeah, it's all about the limits and the levels. So I do think there's that creativity piece where a free market seems to have a bit more of a rule over. If anyone wants to correct me if I'm wrong, by all means. But I think that's where you see a lot of that, to be fair, if I'll be honest.
Well, all due respect to your brother White Matters, you mentioned free market, right? Now the capitalists, right, would like brings out the illusion that you can have a free market. And by the way, as you know very well, free market is competition. Now,
Yes,
if that
yes.
is true for us to have free market and do what we want, then the capitalists will have no need to try and control that, which they do. You see the difference between using certain words, beloved? Free marketing, it's meaning that you have the free will to reap and build up. Now, if you do, imagine if we all was to do that. Do you know what happens to capitalism and the government, brother? It
Yeah,
goes down.
yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
So this is why, brother, these words and why capitalism, it's a problem. Whereas we as African people, we do have a government which is Pan-Africanism, and we don't have to be like non-African people in order to get somewhere. We just have to do three things, brother White Matters. These three simple things which all non-African people do one way or another. Nationalize your culture, right? Nationalize it meaning that you use it as a business, you market the African woman's beautiful and creativity hair style, whether it be straight hair, whether it be curly hair, or whether it be the afro, and you market that. You see, you make her be the symbol for the African woman. If the European woman has been made to be woman for all women, then the African woman needs to be the symbol for African women. You see what I'm saying, brother? If you nationalize your culture, that you don't let non-African people exploit it, because you say to them respectfully in that this is an African culture, so this is what we're going to use. And if you do come into it, then we're going to boycott everything you do. Because, brother, if we're not allowed, brother, to have our beautiful melanated skin, or have dreadlocks, or wear a certain type of style, whether it be clothing, or talk a certain way, and we was discriminated for that, then non-African people, they're not allowed to do that as well. Because if we were discriminated for that, and all of a sudden it's okay to have it now by them, then we have to boycott that. So nationalize your political agenda. Any form of institution that we want to get, brother, whether it's to build an independent Pan-Africanist school where you'll learn science, English, etc., or whether it be teaching our young ones to understand economics, to understand taxes. Of course, that will be in the school. Whether it be understanding the media, any form of the science that runs the world, brother, we nationalize that for our people, for our political agenda. And as for the economics, is that if we are going to have any form of coalition with any non-African person, right, then we have one foot in with them, temporary, and one foot in building up the African continent, building up the Caribbean continent, and also building up a military base, brother, to protect the African Americans. Because these things that we're pursuing and wanting, brother, and then non-African people will try and destroy it. These three things, brother, I mentioned, that's all you need in order to liberate your people. That's all you need, those three things, and it's not that hard to obtain it if you can control your dopamines.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. One question before I look to see, open the panel. Please make sure you like the stream, share the stream, subscribe if you are new. Is there any sort of, I won't say replica, but is there a model out there currently which I won't say is similar, but it's a style of format, a nation that's, Cuba's always been touted as this almost socialist paradise from a bygone era. Is there any sort of nation, or is there any sort of structure in place which we could point to say this is maybe not exactly, but this is kind of what we're looking for in terms of how we want to model ourselves?
Okay, well, you got a lot of people that will mention the Soviet Union as a way of on the contrast, they class it as socialism, but it has a treacle of capitalism layouts in there. China, India, Ukraine, etc. Right? A lot of people like to use that as the model. But at the same time, brother, is that we can use our traditional African democracy that we've used before, and it worked. You know, our way of trading, how we used to trade the gold, coffee, beans, etc. The only thing is, brother, is why we became unsuccessful is because of 5 things, unfortunately. The first thing, brother, was drought. Obviously, the creator out of his tests would test us with drought on the continent. So where there's drought, you will move around. And when you're moving around, you have to kind of adapt to a region. And depending on that region, you solemnly immerse yourself to that region and you become it, which was a big mistake because when we had to leave, we got too comfortable when there was a drought again. The second thing was our tribalism, is that when there was droughts, some of us didn't always come along to seek places where we can benefit. So whatever region you're at, you would you know, maintain that mannerism behavior towards the region. So if we did see each other from a different region due to us seeking drought, then we'll be restricted because we'll say, well, I don't want to have those mannerism anymore because we had a drought and we couldn't really survive as much. So you're going to affect the collective. The third thing, unfortunately, brother, giving away too much wealth. You know, it's good to give charity, but then when we gave too much, it made the non-Africans say, well, they've got more than us, we need to go and conquer it. The fourth thing, brother, is religion. You know, that, and we assume because they are in the same religions as us, that they use the divine revelation instead of their nature, which is not the case, because they all use their nature, which is why Africa was conquered, and also the Caribbean, etc. And the fifth is assuming that all non-African people are the same as African people, which we still do now. You know, if they talk and dress like us, or if we're, you know, they seem to understand certain types of trials, whether it be, oh, I sign on as well, and I'm poor, we assume that we're all the same. These are the things, brother, that prevented our African democracy. But before all that, brother, and you know, a lot of the Europeans, Middle East and Asian will affirm this in their books, that the African democracy of economics was the most sublime and greatest that has ever been known to man. So if we have that and modify it, brother, to adapt to the times, we won't need to use capitalism, socialism, or anarchism. We just have our own African democracy that we model and campaign and benefit during the times, if that makes any sense.
No, it does make sense. I mean, I think I don't know if I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Rwandan president, Prime Minister Paul Kagame.
Yeah,
he was one of those leaders who was staunch in regards to, because Rwanda is seen as the Singapore of continent, and one of the situations where he was pointing out was they don't try and look necessarily for a European way. And that's always been kind of the model. Because let's be honest, we all model after success, regardless of whether you've known success in the past. You're always looking for the future and thinking, okay, what did work, what didn't work, what works now, what should we do? But he did mention, if I read him correctly, that he does have that feeling of, you know what, I'm not saying we can't disregard it, but there are situations where, you know, we have our own models, our own system, because we have a different culture of people. And it seems to work. I say this when it comes to like the Middle East. For some reason, I don't know if this is true or not, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but they seem to gravitate to, I think maybe because their religion, more of a dictatorship type of regime, more of a regime which is a bit different. I know there's other instabilities that take place in the region, but their way of people is just different. So I think they will have a different structure. Chinese have a different structure because they have a different, you know, temperament. Let's use that word. So yeah, I think there is a way of it. For me, it's just a case of what works, what can we, like you said, what can we adapt, and how do we move forward? Because like you said, we're not staying still, we're either going forward or backwards. So yeah.
What's very interesting about those individuals and stuff, right, is that this may become as a shock, but when you look at Winston Churchill, and those who in that they can research it, he also modeled to get Britain on the map by following the Honourable Marcus Garvey's blueprint.
Really, he was like
Hitler
a staunch white supremacy. He was.
Yeah, but what's very interesting as well is that the non-Africans, as what my family always used to say, the best races imitate African culture, is that they will use our ancestors' blueprint and still practice their race first. Hitler did it. He campaigned on the model of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Also the Chinese president, which he also did it. The Vietnamese president did as well. So we have all these non-Africans, right, who are in power and who are, using certain types of strategies, but they got it from us, where our ancestors, where we deny them, and we have all these ridiculous things. Oh, they're old and things like that, and they're dead. But the non-Africans today, brother, still take bits and pieces of our ancestors. So, as far as the Middle East, all they do is, brother, is that they're about keeping up with ahead of the times. They do have certain curriculums that resemble capitalism. What I mean? Because when you understand, like, in that region, okay, is referring to the Islam, etc. And that, well, when you research the Abrahamic faiths, again, it's justice and equality. The Middle East do not have that type of curriculum as what was sent down by the creator. There's still exploitation in many ways and stuff like that, right? Although they're making their land great, and they are not allowing people to settle there permanently and etc. And fair enough, but at the same time they're still using capitalism, they're still using socialism, all these things which derives from African democracy, one way or another, bro. But we do need to have our own African democracy to help our people.
No, I hear that. I definitely hear that. So I've dropped the link in the chat, people. If you want to come up, by all means you can do. If not, what we'll do is that we'll definitely close out the stream. It's been a pleasure, KL, as always, to chat with you in regards to well, basically any topic, to be fair to you. Are there any literature? I was going to ask this question actually. Are there any sort of literature what you would advise for people, even myself, really, just as a starter for 10, I suppose, in regards to I suppose understanding the best way of moving forward as well? Because I've got obviously Marcus Garvey's book, Africa for the Africans. I've got a few books like that. But are there any other books at all which you would recommend, Kale? I know you always mention Neil Fuller and people like that at all.
Yeah, well, the philosophy of Garveyism is a book for people to get. The Children of Garvey also. Definitely, you need Neil Fuller Jr., Francis Cress Wilson, Dr. Emmons Wilson. And the reason why that is because unethical code of conduct, brother, racism was birthed by psychiatrists and who came up with certain strategies to take away the African sense of mind. So you do need black psychiatrists and psychologists to have strategies to deal with the unethical code of conduct. So have something that deals with the mind, which is pan-Africanized. Definitely Dr. Claude Anderson when it comes to economics. That is a book to get. Powernomics is needed. Also, it's good to know about the history, of course. It's good, but at the same time, Neil Fuller Jr. says, we don't learn our history to focus on great wars. We learn it so we can focus on the mistakes which we made. So I would say, economics, political science, Honorable Marcus Garvey, and also, another thing as well, what we need to do, brother, get books on how the African freedom fighters, whether it be the forefathers of Pan-Africanism in their time up until now, how they dealt with the non-Africans in their time, politically and military, is definitely something that the youth needs to read up and capitalize.
Awesome, awesome. I definitely will take a look into those literature and works. Stanley, welcome to the stream. I hope we can have a pleasant conversation, but welcome.
Well,
Hope
no, it'll be. Oh, don't worry, it'll be polite.
no, I mean, again, I don't mind. Yeah, I obviously know you're going to be you're going to have
Well,
your
no, I wanted to say hello to Kale. He brought up a lot of points that made me think and comment, but he always has my respect. Kale, you always have my respect.
when you
Reading list,
stand, Stanley, I'm assuming you're more on the capitalist side. I suppose, like myself, you're more on this
you know,
side.
oddly enough, I I think kind of like a mixed thing.
Yep.
I'm a very like you have to kind of figure out what works, and you don't have to be. I let me put it to you this way. I think extremes of any sort are bad.
Yes. Yep.
People who really actually care about and think about and pay attention to what's happening, um, extremes of any sort are bad, or can, kind of be reckless, actually. So, you tinker with it. And I do know there's a time factor. So I think that capitalism left unchecked, and quite frankly, that's what's happening in the US. This ginormous wealth inequalities and stuff like that.
Because
That's not a good thing.
the impression whenever someone goes to US is it's the land of opportunities, and that's always the impression, which I'm sure you've heard of so many times.
No, I actually think it can be, but oh my goodness, we could talk for hours. It is a land of opportunity, but do you have to prostitute yourself to do it?
Well, this is the word. This is which me and Kay were talking about in regards to exploitation. And I was saying, and I agree with you, your whole analogy of it too much, two extremes left unchecked, it becomes the death of all of us. History has proven that. And this is
Well,
what
I think Kale is right in a certain way. I will say this, and I think Kale might agree with me. You can't be an honest black man who wants to just kind of, have a good life in America. But it's not limited to just black man, that sort of stuff. You can't just be a good human being in America without having to kind of throw up in your mouth every now and again. And you might have to take some stuff you don't want to. But it is the 21st century. It's not 1800, and that's an argument in and of itself. Sometimes you'll have to do things you don't want to do. And, that's pretty much Western civilization post 1945. You might have to go to work when you don't want to.
Yep.
You might have to come in when the boss calls you in. I don't know how something like a Pan-Africanist scenario is going to change that. But I don't want to get off on that. What I want to say is I think the point about America being the land of opportunity, what people don't understand is yes, but no one ever puts potential opportunity
right
before that. You might have to do some things you don't want to do. You might have to make some sacrifices. It's not, land of opportunity is not land of milk and honey.
I agree, and I think, funny enough, I think people kind of, as I said, sensible people, I think, would infer exactly what you just said there. Because in life, you always have to do things you don't want to have to do. If I had my perfect world, I wouldn't be doing a lot of things that I do right now.
Right.
But I have to, because in order to get to where I believe I want to be, or what I've my goals, my dreams are. I'm gonna have to do things that I want to do. So yeah, I definitely agree with your point that it's potential. It's not a what's the word? A free giveaway. It's not a giveaway handout situation where, yeah, come in and we're gonna give you this. No. You're gonna have to.
And I'll be honest with you. I mean, again, Kale is right in so many ways.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, you would just be able to. Well, let me put it to you this way. There are situations where you can just be a free black man and do what the hell you want to do. And there are places in the US that you can do it, but those are like Oprah money sort of situations.
Oh, I thought. Sorry, did you say like rural places, sort of thing, or like?
Well, rural, but even in the rural, you have to have Oprah money, or maybe not be a billionaire, but you can't do that poor.
But I'll say this though, Stanley. Would you not argue that because to be Oprah money, she had to do things that I'm pretty sure prostitute yourself in a way which, yeah.
Well, I don't know Oprah, so I don't want to go that far.
Sorry, but I suppose, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure. Well, let me put it to you this way: every young person, and this is kind of like Pan-Africanism. It doesn't matter the system; it's a human condition. I got a 15-year-old. He's gonna have to do some shit, whether he likes it or not, just to, it's a rite of passage, if you want to call it that. You don't just become a man without putting in a little bit of, some stuff to prove yourself.
Well, here's the thing, brother Stanley, all due respect to you.
Did I offend you? I didn't mean to do that.
Non-African people, brother, don't think how what you just said there. They actually believe in making sure that there's some form of a union that their descendants and offsprings can benefit. Here's the thing: when it comes to forming a union, right? Forming a union.
Well, what kind of union do you mean?
So, for example,
marriage or
Pan-Africanist union, brother, right? Because you were saying that how is it going to work? We know, brother, that Africa is heavily needed, and depending on when it comes to the resources, the pound, the euros, and the dollars is very marketable because it's backed by the African resources. So what we want to do as Pan-African...
Did you also include the, is it the yen or yuan? I can't remember now.
Well, if you want to include that as well, right?
Well, so, we should. There's a Chinese presence there, correct?
Yeah. Well, I do say non-African people, right? So forming a
Chinese
union...
aren't African.
Well, they're non-African, aren't they? They don't class themselves as Africans, do they? In regards to... Say that again?
Yeah, you're correct. My bad.
So the thing is, brother, is that forming a union of workers will formulate a combination of trade union against the bourgeoisies, right? And what would happen is, brother, is that they'll, will basically club together in order to keep up the rate of the wages for the collective of the African descendants. And where we can fund hold on, brother, permanent association in order to keep the provision in our hands, and occasionally we can do revolts if things do get out of hand by the 1%. Now, strange enough, brother, what I'm saying is no it's not new to the African Americans because they've done it so many times, right? Is that sometimes, brother, you're gonna have to have a collective to let everyone knows that if you keep putting pressure on, we're all gonna come at you at the same time. But if one of us, brother, is just complaining and we're involved with non-African people, then we're less likely to be lambs of the slaughter. You have to have a union, a collective to go against injustice in order to get justice. It happened in America, brother, with the African Americans. They fought their way out of certain things.
Okay.
It happened with the Africans on the continent, as well as in Europe, around in the Caribbean. You have to have a union in order to go against injustice.
Well, I'll let Wim allow me to respond.
Yeah, go ahead, go Stanley. Yeah, floor's yours.
You just described roughly somewhere between Marxism and socialism. My question to you, Cale, is which part of Pan-Africanism, economics, any of that stuff, unionism is not Pan-African, correct? Or did I miss something?
You've missed it, brother, because
Okay, then please educate me, and rather quickly.
Well, the Honorable Marcus Garvey had, United.
Marcus Garvey was not in a union. He was a
No,
capitalist, if you really want to be honest.
What his organization catered for the workers, brother, and it catered for the needs, etc. So we can class that as a union, right? So what I'm saying is that
was it a union, or can we class it? Can we interpret it? Please be honest.
No, but there's nothing for me to lie about.
Was it literally called a union?
It wasn't literally called a union, but
okay, then that was my question. You've answered it.
Okay, right. Okay. Well, with that being said, brother, you do have to have a collective in order to match your opponents in the fields which they are using to exploit African people. And the only way you're going to get out of your situation, brother, is attaching your struggle to the continent which everyone benefits from, as well as having a military base. All non-African people all have a military base, and they also have a system that will help them to reap economics to better their race. So we as African people, like we had in ancient times, we must have the same thing in order to preserve and keep black people in charge in all things.
Well, I don't know where to go from there. You said military base. Okay. Military base, Pan-African military base. I can go with that.
It's going to have to be, brother, because no non-African person is going to fight for your liberation correctly. And so far, it's never been done and never will be done. You know, they may fight for the symptoms, but the cause is the unethical code of conduct on African people, which makes us be exploited in all things. We as Pan-Africanists don't believe that African people has been put on the earth to be exploited. We believe in justice and equality, and we are saying that to have a collective Pan-Africanist union in all the work fields in order so we don't have to rely on the system as much. So your son who's 15 has a chance to inherit or benefit from a collective curriculum, so he can have life a lot more easier than him just fending for himself. Because all due respect, the brother Stanley, no non-African person believes that their child should fend for themselves. They always inherit and they'll benefit from a collective of economics in order to make the race
always great. Be careful of that, because a lot of kids actually have people who care for them. But you bring up a hugely good point, and one that I kept, kind of looking like an idiot in the chat going, please explain to me Pan-African economics. How do we pay for the bases? How do we pay for the military? How do we pay? You brought up taxation. I'm glad you did, but I would love to hear, because I don't want to hear about Marx. I do not want to hear about capitalism unless Pan-Africanism has adopted capitalism as a means. Tell me, how do we pay for our military base?
Well, first of all, brother, the show was about capitalism versus socialism, and there's a lot of us, like myself, white matters, we understand these institutions, and that was what the talk was about, of understanding it and how African people can use their ancient ways, which was very successful, which non-African people capitalize on, and modify in modern times so we
Awesome.
benefit. Now, the second thing is,
So
brother, is
what were the ancient African ways economically?
so I
I
was going to
mean,
go into the
you're
second question.
talking like gold. I
So
mean,
we're going
I
to go
kind of understand that part, but are you saying that we need to go back to a gold standard that was quite frankly stolen from Africa? The Europeans got kind of jealous when they saw all that gold, but the genie is out of the bottle for centuries now, maybe a millennia almost. So we're talking a new system. We need to take back Western civilization for the Africans. Or am I kind of going astray here?
Well, we want to put the genie and the smoke back in the bottle by
Okay, then how do
explaining.
we pay for it is my question.
Well, here's the thing. There's 365 days in a year, and there's all these different celebrations that has nothing to do with African people. So if we fast from putting our money in these institutions, these celebrations, and buying things that we don't need, right? And we go back to what Brother White Matters was saying earlier on in regards to those
Who
two.
decides what
Oh,
Africans
brother,
need or
hold on,
don't need?
One
brother,
sec, Stan.
hold on,
Just like
brother,
the
hold
Kale
on,
finish,
brother,
and then you can come
hold
in.
on,
No
brother.
joke. Go
Hold
ahead.
on, bro. Right.
Sorry,
That
my bad.
if we go back to what the African Caribbeans used to do, as well as the African Americans, is that we buy a house and 7 people live in that house, and they all work and they save up their money, like what we used to do, which helped us to build more houses in them times. If we have that strategy again, what we can do is we can use that money and we can invest in the African continent,
I,
the resources, and we can use these resources to create weapons for a military base. So we
okay.
can, do you understand? Like what non-African people
Well,
do.
I mean, I'm not that old. I don't remember what African Americans used to do, and I'm speaking specifically for African Americans,
Okay.
but we didn't always live, we didn't bunk up. No, it didn't work that way.
No,
In
brother, you seem to be missing. There was a time, brother, that the
name me
Af-
the time
no, no, no,
specifically,
no, no, brother,
because
brother,
now you're telling
hold on,
me
hold on,
American history.
brother. The African Americans, just like the African Caribbeans, there was a
No.
time. Oh, brother,
Were you talking back in slave days?
no, I'm talking about after slave days, is that they had to economicalize their money to save that in order to build. And that's what I'm saying, that you don't have to be too old or too young to know that history, because every other
I'm telling
non-African
you.
person did the same thing. The poor whites did it when the rich whites were disfranchising them. The Asians did it, and also the Middle Eastern
So
and
you
the
mean
Africans.
family units stayed together?
Not just family units, brother Stanley. The
So
community.
it was okay. I'm gonna let you finish, and then Wim, tell me when I can respond. Trying to be polite.
All right, Kale, and the floor is yours. So, and then after, I'll
No,
definitely.
please, Kale. Please go on.
No, go on. You want to have your say.
I don't agree with how you presenting the history.
Okay.
So that's pretty much my response. I think what you're saying is ahistorical,
Well, here's the thing, brother.
especially when you look at. Well, I'm sorry, you had the floor.
Here's the thing, brother. In order to campaign and fund your liberation, brother, you're gonna have to use your own wealth and money, brother. And this may be very difficult for us to understand, right? But non-African people are not going to say to themselves, let's help African people fund their liberation against us. It's never going to happen. So we're going to have to use our own wealth, and we're going to have to use our own wealth and our own money, etc. And we're going to have to fund our own liberation. Having unions is very, very important. A
Unions
Pan-Africanist union.
are
Hold on,
a
brother. Hold on, brother.
Western white idea.
You see,
That's
brother,
Marxism.
you're missing the whole gist of the whole thing is that because we have no power, brother, and if you are listening to the show, brother White
Well,
Matter, perfectly
I
clear.
do.
You see, now because you missed it, you're not going to get it. But I will summarize it. Capitalism versus socialism. Now, brother, because we don't control and have our military base, we are subjugated to capitalism, socialism, and Iraqism as well. Anarchism, sorry, right? So it doesn't matter where we go as a people, because we have no power, we're going to be in those types of systems. What I'm saying is what the Honorable Marcus Garvey says. Whatever of those systems you are in, until you get your power, you pan-Africanize those systems collectively. Whether you're in a union, you have a pan-Africanist union in the work environment, etc. Right? And then when you collectively build, that's when you can do other things where you can take over certain systems. But because we are subjugated to it, brother, we have to conform to these labels, but have a pan-Africanist nationalist mindset in order for our if that makes any sense.
So we have to. Oh my goodness, you gave me so much to think about. So a pan-Africanist mindset needs to take over a union or a system.
If I've understood Kale right, I think what he's trying to say is exploit the system where you find yourself by pan-Africanizing it. So utilize the systems for your benefit. I suppose.
We're not doing that now.
Nope. We're not doing that now. We're not doing that now. If we were doing that now, the African Americans would be being protected, the Caribbean would be restored back, and the African country will be restored back to us. So we're definitely not doing that. But exactly what White Matters just said.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this. So essentially, okay, maybe I kind of get your point. Most African Americans or ADOS or whatever you want to call us, our goal is not to build a Pan-Africanist state. It is to like take care of our families. So I don't want to speak for every American Black person who's a descendant of a slave, and certainly not Caribbeans, because that would be, that's not my place. But no, I think I see where you're going with this. Most Black Americans want to make sure that their kids are okay, and maybe it's just too selfish, and that's an argument you can make. And I think I might have to take your abuse on that. And I'm kidding. You don't abuse. I don't care.
Or I don't confuse either. Well, here's the thing, brother Stanley, right? In order to take care of your family in America, right, and we want African life to be protected, you're gonna have to have a military base, brother, and economical powerhouse in order for that to happen.
Let me, Kale, you're still on? I want to DM you an article, and it has nothing to do, but it kind of does. It's an interesting article. I would love to have your input on. The gist of it is, you know what Afro-pessimism is, right? And I don't necessarily buy into the argument, but there's some parts of it that are rather compelling.
Well, brother Stanley, can I ask you a question, right?
Please
you said
do.
Something very interesting. You said most African Americans want to secure their family, right?
Yes,
right? Now,
I would
brother,
hope.
you do understand, brother. You see, the thing is with our people, right, is that we like to use imagination, have too much emotion and feelings towards our reality, right? Now, when I see the Europeans in America, brother, they can take care of their family with security and economics. They can go outside, they can live, they can hold hands as though they're,
Right.
in a, wonderful candy floss factory, right? So to say. Now, in order for our cousins in America to have that, what do you believe is the solution for security and economics for the African Americans?
Okay, Kale, you better put on your your goggles on, and you know what? Um, Regardless of our disagreements, and we've had a few of them, I need you to know that I actually do like you, love you as a brother. So I will not be too offensive. So, um, I just think that, and please forgive me, we've done it for fucking 400 years. We kind of know how to swim in these racist waters. Do we really need help? My answer is no. But I'm not speaking for every um, ADOS, you know, descendant of slave, and certainly not for, CDOS. I don't have that authority or experience. I just I think we've done okay. It's not perfect. How are you going to make it better?
Are you asking me?
Yes,
Like,
sir, I am actually.
here's the thing, brother. Um, you
And
are
please forgive me if I was, presumptuous or disrespectful.
no, brother. It's all love, brother. I don't have an issue with you personally. You're my brother. We're from the same nation. We've just got to clarify many things. Now, brother Stanley, as I said to you before, brother, is that the African Americans, right? They did brilliant things in America, hands down.
Well, no, we built America,
You built America. But here's the thing, brother.
and we don't necessarily want to leave it. We built
Yeah.
it. Why should we leave?
Now, in order to have that land which you built, brother, you
I'm
do
sorry,
understand
language.
that land, what the African
Okay,
Americans
got it.
built.
Sorry.
And you do understand that it's also ran by capitalism. You understand that, don't you, right?
Yeah, I do.
So, in order for the African Americans to get back their land back, what do you believe they need to do to get full control of America, which they built?
Why would we want it? Why would we want to control America? It's like a fire hose that's out of control. Um, we don't want to, and again, I'm speaking personally. So it's just my little neck of the woods here, but um I don't want to. I'm not political necessarily. I don't want to control people. I want to make sure that my family is good enough to prosper.
Okay. Now, we're not on about controlling people, brother. You see, you've missed the point. We're talking
I
about
probably did.
protecting, securing African Americans' life
Hmm.
as well as them prospering. Now, how do we do that in a capitalist system which has military base and all the resources? What do you propose for that? for the African Americans?
Well, let me propose something to you. I was in the military.
Okay.
I kind of understand how it works. I kind of understand the system for better or for worse. And you will make the argument, as you often do, that I'm unsynchronized, but I know how to navigate my pond, my little bit of the water.
Well, brother, let's go back in that pond a little bit and let's go on the shallow part of the pond. Is that on the deep end, brother? You have a lot of
Yeah.
brothers and sisters in
But,
America.
but Brother Kale, because the United, sorry, why it matters for cutting it, because the United States is full of African Americans that just come from different points and angles. Is it really necessary that to have African Americans entirely, or to focus entirely on African Americans, rather than helping to build, helping in building an Africa that's more integrated in terms of infrastructure, in terms of economy, and in terms of security? Wouldn't it be best to focus on that? Because if Africa becomes stronger, the residual effects could have positive impacts for Black Americans as well, even if they don't need it.
But the thing is, brother, I totally believe in that. I'm a Pan-Africanist. And one of the principles of Pan-Africanism is that Africa for the Africans is that if you don't connect the struggle back to the continent, which is backed up by resources and benefits everyone else, then
so,
the
so
children
the
will be
focus shouldn't be entirely on African Americans that may feel, because you don't know, some of them may be patriotic Americans, some of them. So the focus should be in the core. You understand? If you build your core strong enough, the residual effects may have positive impacts to those. Because people only gravitate to something that is winning. You understand? So as long as you're not winning, people don't want to be a part of that as well. And it doesn't matter what system you use, as long as the system benefits Africans, as long as you can achieve results. At the end of the day, the Chinese were not completely absolute in their ideology. They knew what was to work. They used a bit of capitalism, a bit of socialism where it was necessary for their people. You understand? Because the system we live in is a capitalist system, and if you were to implement capitalism right across the continent, you understand, it means you're bringing forth competition, which is a good thing, because competition allows for people to grow, enables innovation to happen and all that kind of stuff, because people are able to focus their energies and things are able to evolve that way. But at the same time, if you bring that type of competition amongst Africans, you have other people who have money already, people who have already involved already. People will do all they can to compete. So capitalism we have to be very careful with it. There's a place, there's a time and place for everything as well. It may have its place, but in an uncontrolled way, we will completely be slumped. So I think it's best for us to focus in Africa itself rather than African Americans as well. That's what I got to say about African Americans. Can come from different angles. So you know what I mean, Brother K?
Well, no, brother, I agree with some of the things, but when you're saying leave the African Americans, that goes against Africanism. Hold on, brother, all due respect, yeah, because you mentioned about the Chinese, brother, they were using capitalism and socialism, but the thing is, what they more use, brother, which we fail to understand, they use the code of conduct. China first in everything. I'm going to use capitalism to benefit China.
Whatever I didn't disagree with that. I said no matter whatever we do to achieve results. You understand what I mean? Because you have to focus on the result. You cannot be absolute in your ideals. So whatever the result. But I'm not, because Black Americans are like Stanley said. There's many Black Americans that don't feel certain. They just want to. You cannot say that is what our energy should be focused on. I think the energy should be focused in Africa and how Africa can move forward, as well as a more integrated. There's even in Africa, you have a lot of different people with different opinions as well. So, but that's why even the leaders, there's so much difference. So you have to focus to your closest neighbor, because you can't expect somebody from Ghana and Somalia to work together to make a project work. So Ghana has to work with its closest neighbor to build infrastructure of scale, and that way the continent can be connected up. It's only through a developed market that has weight in the world you can see people gravitate into it. People will gravitate to it as well. You understand? When you start winning, people gravitate. So, you know, I don't disagree with Stanley at all as well. So, you know, some Black Americans feel differently about how he feels. Some don't feel entire way, you know?
Well, that could be said for the those on the African continent, as you says, right? For me, as a Pan-Africanist brother, we're focusing on the synchronization of African people. Those who believe that African people are all one, whether it's the shade or the languages. Those who also believe in self-determination without relying too much on non-African people. Those who believe Africa is for the Africans. You know what I mean? We're focus on those principles. We're not really, brother, I'll be honest with you, focusing on those who don't want to be free. We know their characteristics.
Well,
Know how to think. It's just that the show today is capitalism versus socialism. And I said to Brother White Matters, it doesn't matter if we're in capitalistic system.
Because Europe itself is not
good
like
for
Europe is a blend. You know?
One sec, Darth Raven. One sec, Raven. Let's let Kale finish his point because I think he's going to answer your point, Darth Raven.
Sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead, Kale. Go ahead.
It doesn't matter which system you use and stuff like that, right? It's still not good for African people because all non-African people, whether you like it or not, believe that only African people are supposed to be exploited. So if we're in capitalism, Black people need to be exploited to benefit capitalism. Socialism, African people again. Anarchism, the same thing. So it doesn't matter which system we're in. What we want to do is, brother, we want to limit our exploitation of that benefiting of us, and we can't benefit. We want to limit that, and the only way to limit that, brother, is having a Pan-African mindset to limit these things, a code of conduct that we can not rely too much on the system and have our own government under a government until we can overthrow the government with our military base as well as economical power.
Can I hop in right quick? And Darth, I don't mean to cut you off, but how about let the individual African decide what is best?
Yes,
I
of
mean,
course.
I freely admit that this is, you know, America has huge faults.
But you know, Stanley.
No, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. Stanley, it's not that it's going to be a forced kind of thing. The individual African will decide ultimately. Nobody's being forced into a concept. The idea is to propagate an idea that will make African people think along the same lines or demand the same things. Either demand more integration, or demand more security for the continent, or demand one currency. Either way, the idea has to be that allows the African continent to synchronize. And we want to push for African leaders that are thinking along the same lines. Leaders that might emerge from different parts of the country are thinking along the same lines. We want to push for African people to vote for that. So it's like a campaign. It's like a revival of a campaign like that. So,
all right. Well, I need I need a little bit of freedom to kind of expand my point. I think, and my goodness, I'm going to sound so American here, but you know what? And Kale has heard me talk and kind of knows me. I want the freedom to choose whether I think. The first thing that really pricks my ears, I don't want people to tell me how to be synchronized. I can decide that for myself. If I need to be synchronized, then sure, I will freely do it. But, you know, if I'm doing okay, I don't want to think in a Pan-African way if I think it's going to be contra to the way I'm doing things.
I mean,
I don't want to synchronize myself to something that is working well. It's working well for me.
Yeah.
Why would I want to change the way? Don't fix what's broken. Maybe that's my point.
Brother Stanley, that's a fair point. I'm doing well myself as well. So,
Of
but
course.
anyways, what I gotta say is, you're not definitely being forced, and the option is it's an option, right? So just like
Okay.
you're free to choose, just like you're free to
Got
choose,
it.
Pan-African is also free to campaign for their message. You are free
Got
to
it.
choose if you like. So it's a campaign, but from right now, I see that there's a lot more Africans gravitating towards it. Of course, I see this undercurrent of I don't like to use the word regressionists or people who I don't know the word to use, but who are against it. There's this undercurrent emerging, but there's a lot more in the content. African, the idea has come. African people by mass desire it more because it's a solution. It's a forward-thinking solution.
Well,
Although
it's
you may have
not
the
a
criticism of it,
universal solution. And that's my whole point.
yeah,
It
it's
is
an option.
not a universal, everyone. The solution is not universal. It will work for many, many people, African people. But I don't want to be called unsynchronized because it's working for me and this is the way I want to do things.
Well, I got a question for the both of you, right? Because you both said that you're doing well. So my question is,
Well,
like,
I mean, I'm not a billionaire.
no. You both
Who
said that
needs
you're
to
doing
be a
well.
billionaire?
So here's the thing. You both said you're doing well. So have the both of you restored back the resources, full control on the African continent? The second question is, have you both restored back the resources in the Caribbean?
But
And
that was
hold on,
never
brother.
the
Brother, hold on,
Caribbean.
brother.
I've never
If I
lived
can,
in the
hold
Caribbean.
on, brother. If I can finish what I says. And
Yes,
have you
sir.
both have a military base that can protect the African Americans who've been shot down every single day?
Protect us from
Hold
what?
on, brother. If you haven't done them things right, then respectfully, brothers, you're not doing well. But if you have, then can you tell me when have you done these things? That's the question for the both of you.
I'm trying to figure out why I need a military base when I'm already doing well. Why do I need a military base that you haven't described how it would be paid for in the first place?
Oh no, brother.
I'm doing okay.
I explained to you how it would be paid for. I gave you the solution, right? So my thing is, you said you
it was
both doing
probably
well.
over my head, and I'm just not smart enough to figure it out.
Let me take a stab at it, brother Kale.
Yeah.
As an individual in my life, I definitely think I'm doing well. I've come through a struggle and I've definitely survived, and I came out at the better end. But what I can say as a collective, I think yes, African peoples definitely, Black peoples definitely do need more security in the world. We need to strengthen ourselves, and in strengthening ourselves, definitely we need to work ever more closer, especially when you look at it from a nation state level. I mean, you need Senegal, you need Gambia, West Africa militaries to collaborate in order to stop the overfishing happening in the region. They may need to collaborate to curb down terrorism as well. They may need to collaborate economically to give their peoples an opportunity at life as well, to have a stronger market so that they don't have to go to Saudi Arabia and eat shit and all that kind of stuff. You understand?
Well,
So I think the collaboration is necessary, but to an individual level, I can agree I'm doing all right as well.
But in the collective,
I actually want to go back to what Darth just said. Let's focus on the people who need our help. I don't think,
Now, Brother Stanley, you've missed what Brother Darth said. He said individually he's doing well, but collectively we're not doing well. Now, hold on, brother Stanley. Now, you said, brother, you don't need protection. So my thing is, brother, all due respect to you,
I see.
If you don't need protection, brother, and the African American, explain to me, brother, the police brutality of shooting down unarmed Black people for no apparent reason, going in their houses.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Hold on, brother. Because remember what you says, brother. You said that you're doing well, and we don't need a military base. So can you explain to me that then?
Which country are you talking about?
I repeat myself again, brother. You said you are doing well.
Which is okay.
No, you mentioned being shot down Which country are you talking about? Britain?
No, brother, you said you're doing well.
Well, no,
So
please
that means,
answer the question.
hold on, brother. I did already
I'm
answer the
trying to
question.
expand it
Brother,
beyond me
no,
doing
no, no.
well.
You
Which
don't need to
country
expand.
are we being shot down in?
You don't need to expand something which you said that the African Americans are doing well. You said that.
I just said that, and
So,
I mean it.
so here's the thing, brother.
So
What do you expect here?
you
Right.
mentioned
Mhm.
black people being shot down. Which country are you talking about?
Which country do you think I'm talking about, brother?
The U.S.?
I'm talking about the US.
Okay,
Precisely.
now let me speak from a U.S. ADOS descendant of slave perspective, if I may have 2 minutes.
You may have 2 minutes.
We can figure it out without a Pan-African perspective. We do not need Pan-Africanism to solve this police brutality problem.
No, you do not need it at all. No, you do not need it at all. In fact, because the situation is within the United States, and you have to deal within those confines as well.
That's my point.
You don't need it. But Africa definitely could use, I'm sure there's many other solutions, but Africa definitely could use such a solution as well.
Well, I'd be happy once we solve it in the U.S.
You guys don't need Pan-Africanism
we'll
necessarily.
export the solution.
Go on.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, guys. Sorry. Let me cut in. Can I ask a question then? Just playing devil's advocate here. If it's been this long and it's not worked so far, is there any harm of trying a different approach to see if that works?
Which one are you questioning?
To Kale's point about police brutality, it's the point that I know you said
in which country?
The US. Come on, it's the US, Stanley.
Okay, so I'm gonna sound rather how is Pan-Africanism in a perfectly racist country going to solve a white supremacy problem in the States? That's the details I want to know.
Brother, can I answer that, brother? I'll tell you how it will.
Do.
Because remember the forefathers of Pan-Africanism, brother. You do realize that they came from the United States. So here's the thing, brother, right?
In detail, please.
Hold on, brother. Hold on, brother.
Okay, all right.
Africa, brother, is the richest continent on the planet, right? So if we Pan-Africanize our mind, brother, we can use the continent to build
which continent?
I've just said the African continent, brother.
So how is that going to solve a problem in the U.S.?
Well, if you let me finish, brother, I can tell you the solution to extinguish the problem. But if you keep interrupting, we're going to be in the pond again, and some of us are going to be fishing. So here's the thing, brother. The African continent, brother, has the resources. Europeans, Asian, Middle Easterns, they use the African resources to build weapons. You understand? They do that. They go Congo, even North Africa, right? So if we Pan-Africanize our mind and we populate our minds with these resources in the African continent, right, then we can use these weapons which they use, and we can have a military base to protect each other, as what Brother Darth was saying, when we have terrorists coming in, which is from the CIA as usual, and all these things to disrupt our liberation, right? Now, when we can use that to America, brother, that if we unite, because there's more African people on the planet, right? And we can use that military base to protect the African Americans. So if people want to shoot the African Americans down, we can say, well, if you shoot any African American, you're not getting the resources, because we've also built our military base with our resources and we can rival you. This will limit the extermination of the African Americans in America, as well as in Europe, as well as on the African continent.
Brother Kale, I get what you're going at, but I think what I'm saying is that it's just the focus of it, right? If you focus on unifying the African Americans rather than actually focusing on making are putting our energies and thoughts in and ideas in coming up with solutions that make the continent work. When the continent works as well, that will be such a heavy force. If it works, when it works, that will be such a heavy force that the residual effects will result in what you're saying. And even in the process, African Americans who want to are free to participate in also enriching themselves and helping up build up the continent to give themselves more power in the United States, because money is power, giving themselves more power in the United States. Everybody's getting rich from Africa. African Americans can participate in that too, those who want to. But the fact is, the core of Black people, where they come from in the world, that's where our energy should be focused on. Not necessarily. Yeah? Go on.
Let me say something. That's kind of Kale's point. I think you may misunderstand what Kale's coming from.
No, I got what Kale's saying. I'm just saying it in a different way as well. Right, okay. In a way that lets Stanley know we understand your position, that you are satisfied where you are in life and you want to be offered the option to choose.
That's not necessarily my point. That is one element, and you're right. Man,
Can I offer this as an analogy? To see if
please
helps.
Do.
So do you know obviously the war in Ukraine, and what's happening is the rest of the European they're ganging up on Russia, sanctions. They're telling them, look, you doing what you're doing now, we're going to sanction you. We're stopping your oligarchs. We're stopping people's yachts. We're banning you. We're doing all these restrictions to basically tell you whose side we're really on. Kale, is that kind of what we're saying here in this instance? Build up Africa, Pan-Africanize it, and then if you touch our people on this soil, just know we're going to do X, Y, Z. Is that how I understand some of the play?
Exactly, and not just on the African continent, brother, the Caribbean as well, and also the Africans in the diaspora, of course. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because, brother, we did this in ancient times, and this is what
define the ancient time. Which ancient time are you talking about? That's actually a frustration of mine.
Yeah,
Kale, brother.
You have to endure.
You talk about ancient times. Right. Which ancient times? Is it before they started selling slaves?
Brother, as what Brother White Matters mentioned, right, is that in order to be successful and prosper, you need a military base and you need economic. It's always been that way, brother. Right? It's always been that way. There's no need for us to go into matters which are very clear. Military base and economic.
The devil is always in the details, and you never give me details.
But the devil's in the details. But
we talk about Garveyism. We talk about big picture stuff. Start getting more into the weeds about. I don't see how you're gonna get there from here, and really, that's my problem.
Well, the problem is, brother, is it's very simple. The Honorable Marcus Garvey made it perfectly clear with these 3 solutions, which all non-African people do every single day, by the way. He says, nationalize your political agenda. That means any political agenda to liberate African people, whether it be on the continent or the diaspora, it should only be for African people, not for non-African people.
Marcus Garvey wasn't African.
Right? You understand? The second thing, right, is that you nationalize.
May I ask you a question?
Hold on, let me finish my point, because you asked the question, how's it going to work? The second thing, you nationalize your economics. That means don't have the non-African celebration by funding their celebration like Christmas, Easter, and all these holidays they use. Hold on, brother, which they use your money to gentrify you out of neighborhoods, and they use our money to build up military artillery weapons to exterminate us. That means nationalize your economics for African people in the diaspora and in the African continent. And the third thing, nationalize your culture. That means, brother, that whatever culture you have on the African continent or in the Caribbean,
American
hold on, brother. Hold on.
My
Hold on.
bad. May I
Whether it's from
respond right
America,
after
hold on,
Kale
brother.
gets done,
Whatever
please?
culture, whatever African culture you have, it should only be for African people, and you should use it as a business to keep black people in charge. That means non-African people should not be controlling your culture. You should not be getting in awe if they learn your
No.
language, or if they want to dress like you, or if they want to be a chief. No, it's only for African people. You nationalize it, because you cannot go into the Arabs' culture and dress like them and act like them. They will tell you you're not an Arab. You can't go in the Asian culture and dress like them, talk like them. They'll tell you that you're not an Asian. And you can't go in the European culture, because you can dress in the suits and ties, even though African people taught Mark Polo, who was an Italian who went to Ethiopia and brought back
Oh boy.
the fashion sense. You cannot use their culture without them letting you know that you're in our culture. We as African people must do the same thing. Our culture belongs to African people. Our political agenda is for African people. And our culture and economics is for African people. No one else. It's simple.
All right. Well, I don't know where to go, because you have crossed cultural lines. I don't know where to go. My only point is that I don't know that African Americans are like acting that European. If nothing else, African Americans influence American culture.
That's true. What I can
So
say,
it's not perfect. It is actually probably horrible, but it is for the better.
Brother Stanley, which is good as well, and I think it's true. African Americans did a lot in the United States and all that stuff.
Well, let me address one more point. I'm sorry to interrupt you, brother.
Okay.
Kale, I'm trying to figure out the fascination with Garvey.
Okay.
I've been trying to figure that out for quite some time.
Maybe just to help you out.
Frederick Douglass. There are so. When did Marcus Garvey make it to Africa?
Maybe this will help you out, Brother Stanley.
Well, now, please answer that question. When did Marcus Garvey set foot on African soil? Because I must have missed that part.
I'll answer it afterwards, right? Here's the thing.
Well, no, can you answer my question directly?
One second.
When did Marcus Garvey set foot in Africa?
I'll answer it indirectly when I've answered a direct beneficial statement.
I don't.
A capitalist, because the show is about capitalism.
Yeah, my question be answered directly.
But the show is about capitalism versus socialism. So here's the thing: a capitalist by the name of Henry Kissinger, right, who also was a capitalist, he says in the National Security Memo 2000, right, he mentions that.
Why are we talking Henry Kissinger in a black conversation?
Because it's about capitalism and socialism, brother. You see, you've got to catch it so you don't lose it. He says in his book, our biggest threat to our European establishment globally is Pan-Africanism by the African diaspora.
Like he actually understood it.
This is what the non-African Henry Kissinger in the National Security.
Do you know the
hold on, brother. So hold on, brother.
Okay.
Now, what he says, brother, I don't really need to take from him to know that already. But
can I please?
Can I interject?
Henry Kissinger's.
One second, Stanley. One second. I promise you. Everyone's finished.
People don't care about Henry Kissinger in the U.S.
I understand. Hold on.
He's a relic.
Kel, do you want to finish your point and then I'll let everyone come in? Go ahead, Kel. Floor is yours.
The point is, Brother Stanley, in order for African people and the continent and diaspora to be liberated, right, they have to have a code of conduct, their own military base, their own economic funded to get our liberation. Nothing else, no non-African person,
I
no
see.
is going to help you out of your situation. They all believe in capitalism and they all believe exploiting African people. I hope you understand that.
I understand your points. I actually heard what you said. All I want to say is I vehemently disagree. The historical references, Henry Kissinger and Marcus Garvey, I'm going to be brutally honest. In 2022, to the ADOS, let's just say American descendant of slave community, Henry Kissinger is not even taught in history. Marcus Garvey, while important, is not a black star that we follow.
Can I ask something, Brother Stanley? Brother Stanley, would you recommend that, or even say that it will be a benefit to African countries if they looked more inwardly in terms of trade and traded with each other, or if they worked more cohesively in terms of security to actually mitigate the instability happening and the insurrections
I
always
can't.
happening? Right?
I'm not qualified.
No, but would you say that's a positive for Africans to work on that way, or even
No,
perhaps even have a single or a unified kind of currency to get rid of? Would you say that's a positive
no.
to Africa?
Oh my goodness, I am so unqualified to answer that question.
But is it a positive? I mean,
Oh no,
always
it would
working
be
together.
100% positive.
So if that's a positive, that's what the African countries are focusing on. They realize how
No,
hard
but
it is. Yeah.
I know I interrupted you,
Hmm.
but Africa is so much. Africa is not so many cultures, so
Yes, of
many.
course. Of course. I understand that. I
I
understand that.
can't.
Yeah.
I'm, dude. That is such a complicated question. Um,
The fact is, no matter how complicated people are,
I
although
think
they're from the same region, I mean, you could say Europeans are also
no.
very complicated.
The
Yeah,
only
but they
thing you, me, and Kale and Wim might agree on is Africa for the Africans. However, there are so many. Africa's a continent, just like
brother Stanley, I think let me just finish what I'm going to say.
that's him,
I
dog.
think you yourself know
I'm sorry.
you yourself know Africans looking more inwardly would definitely, and trading more inwardly will definitely be better for them. I think you definitely know that, but we're just gonna ignore
Yeah.
that. But what I'm gonna say, I understand the complexities of Africa. Europe is also complex. The United States is also complex. But
Of course.
there's a reason why you have these bodies as well. The European Union, as much as complex it is, they trade with
Mhm,
each other. They trade with each other. They have one economy. They
mhm.
collaborate on security. It's always a positive. So sometimes some Pan-Africanism champions that as well. And it's not a case that we must focus on
Right.
the United States citizens. You guys are citizens of the United States, and the focus of Pan-Africanism shouldn't be entirely United States citizens. It should be making African countries work ever closer to make the countries work. Yes, there's differences, but those differences can be mitigated by systems that exist today. But the fact is the systems are not working as the best as they could because the leaders, the political leaders leading it, that is a problem. That's where the problem is as well.
Now,
So
brother,
the idea
brother
is to
Dar,
Well,
champion more
I may I
brother
Pan-Africanism.
Dar,
respond right quick? And Kale, it won't be long.
okay.
I think you're absolutely right, Darth. However, number one, I am nowhere near qualified to even render an
Mm,
opinion.
mm,
But what you said, I think that what you say sounds good. Um, it's not that Pan Africanism doesn't work as a framework
mm,
for for me as an ADOS person,
You don't need it.
it's a no. That's not what I mean.
Mm.
It's a framework. I will always care,
Mm.
but it should
Brother
never be
Right.
like being synchronized. It should never be a demand. It should never be an expectation, because you know what? Africans, shit. I took a modern African lit class when I was in college, and the African professor who taught it was motherfucking brilliant.
But I don't think it should be a
But
demand upon a
well,
United
no, I
States
sound
citizen.
so white when I say that.
I don't
Yeah.
think it
But
should
it
be
also
demanded.
taught
I
me
don't think
that
Pan-Africanism
Africans
should
know
be
what they're
demanded
doing.
on a United States citizen.
Yeah, but Brother Darth, here's the thing with Brother Stanley, all due respect to him, right? In America,
He's gonna kill me.
I'm not going to kill you, brother. I'm going to
No,
speak.
it's a joke.
I don't believe in killing you, brother. I believe in trying
It's
to
a joke.
save you from a distance. Now, we have Alexander Crummell, who was a Pan-Africanist, born 1819, died 1898, helped the
Oh
African
no, I read a
people.
paper by him today,
Hold on,
and
brother.
he
Hold
was
on,
a
brother.
big
Hold on,
English
hold on, brother.
language learn
Hold on,
Greek
brother.
person.
Martin Delaney, also another Pan-Africanist. Edward Biden, also another Pan-Africanist in American suffrage. And the list goes on, brother. You see, majority of the revolutions, brother, and the revolt.
No, you're talking a
brother,
century
brother,
ago.
brother,
Kamel lived
brother,
a century
brother.
ago.
brother, where is the discipline and mannerism when it comes
No,
to dialogue, right?
you're
Now,
bringing up
here-
shit that's 100 years ago.
the reason why I have to bring this up, because you were saying that it's not going to work and things like that. But
I'm saying,
brother,
yes, sir.
brother, I don't want you to drown in the pond, brother. I want you to be on the shores so you can walk properly. Now, we have proof, evidence, brother, that that these Pan-Africanist principles has worked and will work as long as the African people on the continent and the diaspora use the code of conduct. We are in the situation that we're in because we've abandoned these codes of conduct, right, on Pan-Africanism. And if we'd only stick to it based upon nationalism, then we wouldn't be in this situation. That is why it will work.
Which nationalism, which nation is nationalism based on?
Brother K, there's so many code of conducts, like a campaign. You must campaign for it to win the hearts and minds and have people gravitate to it as well. You know, so it's not a case of where you can force somebody to behave a certain time, because you have Muslim Africans that don't give a shit. I say, Brother K, the most problematic people of Pan-Africanism is the Islamic countries and the dominance of Southern Africa by Afrikaners and the Francophone countries. These will be the biggest challenge for Pan-Africanism. So, and for the United States themselves, I think it's better to strengthen the core or your homeland rather than reaching out. I think people will naturally gravitate when you start to actually show results and start winning. So if you put your energy in convincing people like Stanley, you're wasting your energy.
Well, you know what? Let me make one proposal.
Yeah, go on, brother.
Don't demand it. Don't talk about synchronizing.
We don't demand it. We don't demand it of you.
Oh no! I'm talking to
Stanley. We don't demand it of you. We think it's a great solution, a great way for African peoples as well to be on the same wavelength. It's not a demand. It's a suggestion, an idea that is good for African peoples.
You need to talk to.
Nothing is being demanded.
Brothers. Now, Brother Darth, you said that
being synchronized. Synchronized. That scares me. Being synchronized, being on code. That scares an American.
The reason why it's a problem, Brother Darth, right? You're talking about all these codes of conduct, right? The only code of conduct what has been successful for African people is these principles here. All African people are one family.
Successful where?
Hold on, brother. Whether you are in different shades, tribes, languages, you identify within Africa before any label. That's going to get rid of all these things when you're talking about the Muslims and things like that. The second thing, independence.
Brother Kill, you're gonna struggle to get the Muslims to get
Brother,
along. Trust me, I
brother,
tell you.
brother
I've
Darth,
debated with the Muslims. I'm on your
brother
side,
Darth,
Brother Kill. Listen,
brother
I'm on
Darth.
your side.
No,
I'm on your
brother.
side.
If you're on my side, then you'll listen to what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because it's not about debating with Muslims. You see, the problems with we as a people, you want to debate with unsynchronized
We
African
are
people,
not
right?
a people.
You want to debate with unsynchronized African people that you cannot save.
No.
This is the fundamental of Pan-Africanism. You never debate with non-African people or unsynchronized African people because they cannot be saved. They are the reason why, brother, Africa was conquered and why the Africans in the diaspora are suffering. So what we saying as Pan-Africanists, if I can finish, the second principle is self-determination, all things, right, without the help of non-African people. The third thing, as what the Honorable Marcus Garvey says, he doesn't believe that you should make an image of the creator. However, if you are going to do that, make sure the image looks like you. And the fourth, Africa is for Africa globally together. You see, brother, these are the principles that we go by. So when you're talking about
Marcus Garvey set foot on Africa?
Brother Stanley, if you're talking about all these other codes of conduct, they're not going to be tangible because we have proof and evidence that Pan-Africanists, nationalists use these principles, which helped out the African continent. When you go in Nigeria, you got Nimamba Isikwani was a Nigerian.
African continent, but not
was a Nigerian
people.
I think it's better to focus on the actual tangible things that we want to demand rather than focusing on African Americans. You know, it's a framework.
I'm not focused on African Americans, brother. I'm not focused on the unsynchronized African Americans. I'm not focused on the unsynchronized African people. I'm focused on African people, brother, who understand, whether they are on the continent or the diaspora, that understand in order for your liberation, you have to have a military base owned by us, economics funded only by us. I'm only interested in those African people. The ones who don't want to do that, brother, I have no interest for them.
So don't waste your energy debating with those that don't need it.
Brother, do you see me going on any debating channel? Brother Dar, do you see me? Have you ever heard Kale going on any debating channel? I don't do that, brother, because I understand as a student of political science to debate non-African people about racism.
I can tell you,
right?
brother.
Hold on, brother.
There's more Africans that gravitate. There's more Africans that want integration.
One second.
Listen up, brother Darth, right? As a student, as a political science, to debate non-African people about our struggle, which they know what they're doing, is a waste of time. We don't believe in that. And to debate with unsynchronized African people who believe that they're doing well, who believe that their tribe is going to help them against a global powerhouse called white supremacy, I don't debate with them, brother. I'm only on this show because Brother White Matters is very beneficial for our community. And he came with a brilliant topic of capitalism versus socialism, right? Which I already made it clear already that it doesn't.
Tell you, no matter what word people frame it as, any form of black collectivism is kind of what Pan-Africanists want. So we don't really care for the name and all that kind of stuff, right? Of course, we want the name because he has to have a stamp. So I will choose Pan-Africanism as well. But it's all forms of black collectivism to get us up, not just black, and also it extends down to the homeland itself as well. So, Brother Kale, what I got to tell you as a positive is, as much as you may have people that like to be contrary, there's a lot more people who want what you want, Brother Kale. They want that synchronicity. They just need to be directed and pointed towards the right direction. So if somebody is being contrary and doesn't want it and they don't need it, you can't force it down their throat. You know, it's a campaign, and it's a campaign we must campaign hard and see who wins at the end of the day for the minds of black people. And then there's those that will campaign differently. But I think African people definitely want more collectivism, more integration amongst ourselves as well. You know, that's what I think. although there's differences, they will eventually come around and all that stuff. So, go on,
But brother
Stanley.
Darth, we should never identify with a color, right? Because I'll tell you why. No other nation, brother, identifies with their color. They don't even identify with being mixed race, by the way. They all identify with a landmass that's backed up with resources. Do you understand?
Yeah, that's
That is
nonetheless.
Hold on, brother.
so
Hold on, brother.
not true.
Right. Now, here's the thing. A great African descendant freedom fighter by the name of Khalid Abdul Muhammad says, black is culture, consciousness, right? A connection to the creator, and color, right? Now, we only use the word black, brother, to gather an experience, right? Which those who follow that type of curriculum when it comes to black, however, brother, is better to identify with Africa because first of all, in that, it's the oldest continent, and number two, it's backed up with resources, and number three, it will help with your liberation. A name is very important. That's why we classify as African the more than black, if that makes any sense.
That's all right. That makes sense. That it doesn't matter as at the end of the day, to me, as long as lives are improving in Africa, people's lives are improving, because we can't afford to keep, as long as the market can improve in Africa, industries can come back, or we can put industries, because the Pan-African leaders in the beginning started having industries. It's only during the 80s that things turned up as the fall of the Soviet Union, So one thing I can say about this topic is Pan-Africanist leaders went for Pan-Africanism or more of a socialist because they knew in a capitalist world they couldn't compete against those who already have. They couldn't compete against them, because if you were to bring that competition in the African continent, they would have been completely enveloped again as easy as possible as well. So upon their deaths and all that stuff, African people got rid of all those nationalization things that they were doing. The Pan-Africanists died. And then you had these new puppets as well that emerged and were put in place, and they opened up the African market just to be completely gobbled up by these Western nations as well. So they went for more capitalism, and look at what he has led us. We've been monopolized entirely and all that stuff. So that's why I think they went for socialism as well as a means of protecting and nationalizing systems. But it's not a case that where they think there's not a place for capitalism. There's a place for it and all that stuff. It's just at the time they responded, they used the right response, although there was a Cold War going on and they lost that battle as well with the fall of the USSR. And it's not just Africa. Many other parts of the world were doing very well in the 60s and the late 70s as well. They were doing very well. Afghanistan looked very good as well, But it's just as the USSR fell, then Europeans emerged from the era where, because after the war, they were completely decimated. So now they rebuild Europe, and now they're ready to go back to the world and neo-colonize, recolonize during the 80s and 90s. That's why you had these puppets as well. So we live in an era where Africa is more capitalist and all that stuff, and that's why you see that we are monopolized.
But brother Darth, that kind of speaks into what me and brother and White Miles were speaking about in the show.
Yeah, I just have to end it on that note as well as my final say as well.
But entering socialism, look what happened. The Black Panthers entered socialism, and look what happened, which is why brother White matters, right? That, as I said before, socialism, capitalism, any one of those is detrimental to our people. Rather, if we nationalize our institution, will be more better off.
But nationalizing things is part of the socialist ethos as well. It's also part of that, Brother Kale. Nationalizing things as well. Russia nationalized their resources. They not only nationalized, they were able to
nationalizing assumes there's a nation to put there.
Right? You said the socialists believe in that, right? Now, I agree with you to a certain extent, because what the socialists believe in is that they want a communion of multiracial to build it up. But at the behind it all, it's Europeans still keeping in charge. So if they can do that, brother, then we must have a code of conduct that if we are in those institutions until we get our power back, then we benefit African people first. It makes
So what
perfect
kind
sense,
of
brother.
code of conduct do you advocate for, and who must the code of conduct affect and apply to?
I don't think that you were listening to what I said, brother. I already told you the code of conduct already, brother. The principles of Pan-Africanism is the code of conduct, brother. It worked well with Nimamba Izikwani in Nigeria, who went to the same university as Kwame Nkrumah in Philadelphia and built up Nigeria, and Kwame Nkrumah built up Ghana. Although
I just needed you to
hold on, brother, as
elaborate,
Pan-Africanism,
because when you say
right,
code of conduct, I kind of
right,
don't understand, because there's many
okay.
different code of conduct, but I needed you to
But
elaborate.
Yep, I
no, brother,
haven't talked in a
no,
while.
the thing is, hold
Sorry.
on, brother Stanley. I already explained already,
Yes,
brother, but you
sir.
didn't listen. I told you the code of conduct is that the first principle, all African people are one family. That's the first code of conduct, brother.
Okay.
Right?
I'll
Whether they
stop
are,
you here.
hold on, brother, hold on, because brother asked the question,
Really?
right?
I
Whether they
haven't
are in
talked in a
different
while.
shades, whether they're in different shades from a different tribe or different languages, right? That's part of the code of conduct. The
I
second
think
is
you struggle with the
self-determination.
Somalis, mate. To
You
be honest.
understand, brother? Self-determination. The third, if you going to make your deity, right, then your deity must look like you, if that's what you're going to do. And the fourth thing, Africa's for the Africa. This is the code of conduct, brother. You understand? That's
I
the
get it.
code
I get
of
it.
conduct.
Why it matters? I'm gonna go. I'm not here to necessarily argue. I'm saving my energy for different battles. This is not a battle channel, so I'm saving my energy for different fights.
No,
And
that's fine.
Stanley, it's nice meeting you and Oliver. So that's it. Why it matters. And keep going.
I hope you come back. I really enjoyed your insights.
Yes. I think I heard you in other channels, Stanley, but
Well,
maybe you come on
probably
different.
being an idiot too.
Yes, I know you take such a different approach as well and all that stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and well, hence
Yeah.
idiot.
All the best, brother Kale, and a lot
Yes,
of more
brother.
people are around your mindset as well. They gravitate towards you. You just gotta refine it a bit more. Yeah, later.
Well, here's the thing for the viewers and those who are in doubt, right? If you can name for me as Brother Cal, when your tribe has defeated white supremacy, regained back all the control of the resources on the African continent, the resources on the Caribbean, and also a military base to protect African people, whether it's in Europe, America, or on the African continent. If you can name me one tribe, then I'll say, you know what? Pan-African's not going to work. But if you cannot name me one tribe, then forever hold your peace and remain silent, because Pan-Africanism is the way forward for our liberation. All due respect to everyone.
Stanley, I know you wanted to.
I think Kale had the final word. How can I follow that?
No. That's fair enough. To be fair, I was gonna say it's been 3 hours, and I kind of wanted to wrap up the stream, so I think that's a great time to wrap it up. So, no, I appreciate each and every one of you for joining. Kale, big up to yourself as my special guest. I know we had some bumps along the first start, but it's all good. It's all good. Stanley, likewise, and Dolph, appreciate you coming along. Do you want to?
I really enjoyed Kale. We'll talk again, I hope.
God willing, Brother Stanley. And Brother White Matters, we appreciate your content, brother. It's definitely beneficial for our community, the different topics that you do. And I'll always, brother, support it. And I hope that you keep doing these contents, brother, because this is one of our greatest media that we have. And we do need to keep supporting it, the likes and different topics, because it's all about solutions for our liberation. All due respect to you, Brother White Matters. All due respect to you, brother.
100%. It might be the only thing that Kale and I agree upon.
No. I mean, thanks to you both, and I do try and enjoy to have different topics and just different conversations, because it's always good to have different types of conversation as opposed to the stereotypical samey conversations. But anything that we can bring solutions to us as our people, then yeah, absolutely, I'm for it. I will say, to be honest with you, I will be taking a bit of a break on this. I do have some personal things I need to tend to, so I will not be doing much live streams and uploads, to be fair to you. So if I'm not around, it's just because I'm taking a bit of a break, everyone. So Yeah, appreciate you all bearing with me. I will be back, but yeah, I need to take a bit of a break at this moment of time. But yeah, no, again, thank you everyone for joining. Please make sure you like the stream, share the stream, subscribe if you are new, if you're listening onto the playback. Did anyone have any last final things they wanted to say before we close? Stanley, I know you were, it sounded like you wanted to say something.
I love my brother Kale. Okay. No, I'm dead serious. I'm not joking. Kale knows I love it.
Is it like a annoying younger brother type thing? Is that what we're saying?
No, just annoying, but you know what? Bottom line is I'm not joking. I actually, dude is smart.
Well, I will say this: you do seem to have a lot more. What's the word? You do like to engage with Kale, so you must have a lot of profound respect to be able to want to come up here all the time. Because yeah. So for that I can say, but no. Again, Kale, thank you. Appreciate you taking your time out from your busy schedule. So again, I do really appreciate you for coming through. Honest to God, I do. Stanley, you too as well. Appreciate it because it must be a different time zone where you are. So I'm trying to think what time is it over there? 5 something, maybe 6. And then Darth, thank you again for coming.
Yeah, it's early here, 5:30.
Okay.
So
okay, makes sense.
Y'all get some sleep.
Absolutely. But again, appreciate everyone for joining in. Thank you everyone in the chat. Please make sure you like the stream, share the stream, subscribe if you're new. Until next time, we're out of here. Thanks everyone.
Yes, sir.